Good morning, Smite fans, and welcome to another day of the North American Smite Challenger Circuit Championships. Over here in NA, we've got still a few teams left to qualify to our second round of play and a couple more teams to eliminate, and both of those are going to be hit in today's matchups. We got some great ones for you guys. We've already sent a couple of teams on to the second round of play, that being the Eldritch Hounds and the Athenian Sages, and today we'll get to see who gets to join them over on that end. I'm J-Mac. I got Trelly Relly joining me on the desk to help me get through our very first set of the day, which we're going to talk a little bit more onto that one, which we will get to see at least with the Kaolin Wardens and We Pull Up, an SOC representative still in the tournament right now, Trelly.
Yeah, we've been seeing a couple of these SOC teams making it really far in. That's why I'm saying standings, throw them out the window at this point. Whatever team shows up on the day and shows up ready to play, that's the team I'm looking for. So I think they both got a shot.
And all of these teams this weekend, last weekend, even with the SPL, all playing for their chance to make it to the Smite World Championship. And these teams trying to make it to the SWC group stage through our Road to Worlds qualifiers. We've already gotten through our Phase 3 playoffs. We sent our first 4 SPL teams to Worlds. Last week, we sent 2 EU representatives to that group stage in January on the 5th through the 8th. And by the end of this weekend, we'll know which 2 NA, SCC, or SOC, if at least We Pull Up and continue the reign that they've had so far. Maybe see if we can send them as well to the SWC group stage. And then we'll take the top 4 from the 4 SCC and the 4 SPL teams still left at that point and send them on to the Smite World Championship January 13th through the 15th in Arlington, Texas at the eSports Arena. So win your games this weekend, win your games in, well, goodness, that's almost in a month at this point. That's like 3 weeks after this event goes through. And you see if you can make it to the Smite World Championship. We can take a look, though, at the bracket for our NA regions, starting over in Group B, which is what we kind of finished the day with yesterday. We had the Athenian Sages got their promotion up into the elimination stage of play. That sent the Yomi Tanuki down into the lower bracket once more now. Let's face off against the Shibalba Storm, who they faced at the beginning of the week, and it was actually a very decisive 2-0 for the Yomi Tanuki at that point. So we'll see if the Shibalba Storm have that bounce back to see if they can be the second team of Group B to join the Athenian Sages in the elimination stage. But our first matchup of the day is going to be taking place over in Group A, where we've already had the Eldritch Hounds have their qualification up through. Kaolin Wardens dropped to the Eldritch Hounds in their matchup 2-0, and now they'll be facing up against We Pull Up, the number 2 SOC representative through. And Charlie, this is almost the exact same story that we had last time in the EU region, where Personnel, who was the second seed for EU, had to go up against Hex Mambo. It wasn't a particularly close set. And then they had to go up against an SCC team, beat the SCC team, and now they are facing potentially a qualification to the next round of play if they can topple another SCC squad. But the Kaolin Wardens, no pushover of a team. It's going to be a hard one for We Pull Up to find this one.
Yeah, with that being said, though, the Weavers were able to take a game off the Wardens earlier on in this weekend, whereas We Pull Up actually were able to 2-0 them. So could be something just to consider, and the fact that you've highlighted the fact that, you know, We Pull Up has been having a pretty solid tournament so far, maybe better than some people expected, but we've seen these names around. So I think they've got what it takes, and like I said, I think this could be anyone's game.
Yeah, I mean, We Pull Up has been outside of their initial set, but it's sometimes hard to look good against the Eldritch Hounds. I mean, that's such a dominant team over in North America that even some of our teams in the SEC still struggle to face off against them, such as the Kaolin Wardens, who were able to at least take a couple of those games fairly long up against the Eldritch Hounds yesterday. And the Kaolin Wardens, they look pretty good. And one player that really kind of stood out to me, Charlie, was Griff over in the duo lane. Felt that really no matter what was happening across the map, whether it was losses over in the mid lane or in the jungle or whatnot, Griff always felt very consistent throughout his matchups so far this weekend.
Yeah, I think Griff has been pretty much the picture of consistency as an ADC for this tournament. Even, you know, when the whole team was down, you could look over and just know, hey, Griff is even or ahead in some instances. And sometimes it just needs a little bit more itemization, and then once he was able to rotate into those fights and help out his team, it really was all the difference. You could tell even at this situation, so much gold down to the Weavers, and Griff makes one rotation in, saves essentially the team fight for his squad, and the Fire Giant just gets so much easier. So I think Griff has been having a heck of a tournament so far, and if this is going to be the consistency of play, if this is going to be the bar he's set for himself, it's going to be difficult for We Pull Up to deal with. I would not be surprised to see either some target bans put towards Griff, or some pressure looking towards duo lane, making sure that, you know, DonutDoug and TeepIsBald can actually get pressure in that matchup.
Yeah, I think the diversity of his god pool this weekend as well. I mean, the Cupid, Ishtar, even bringing this Rama out, which Rama isn't something that we've been seeing very much of. We go up to like the SPL level, and I think like only Steward and then maybe like Dardes and Vote on the Warriors are kind of playing this pick at the top end of play.
Right.
SCC, we've seen it kind of bounce a couple of times back and forth. So seeing a little bit of flexibility in his God pool in the dual lane is always a nice little shot to kind of see there. Up against him, though, is going to be a player at least very famous among the rank scene and has made some strong showings in the SOC with DonutDoug, who hasn't looked the best in his dual lane matchup there. A lot of what I've seen from the success of his squad comes from when TeepIsBald is able to make these rotations through, allow DonutDoug to get that extra little bit of farm, when PandaTurtle is popping off and allowing Doug to try and get a little bit of extra free farm out there. But I at least like the attempted aggression that Doug has been putting out in that dual lane. I like what I've seen from DonutDoug so far this weekend from We Pull Up. I'd just like to see a little bit more, especially when you're going up against a player like Griff, as consistent as he has been.
Yep.
Need someone to throw a wrench in the cogs.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to phrase it. Trying to throw Griff off his game and certainly play through pressure is something that We Pull Up definitely needs, and I think DonutDoug has the skill to do so. As you said, we've seen him around the rank scene for a bit and definitely has the potential to run away with the game if given a little bit of space, but haven't quite seen that level of consistency yet from this ADC. And because of the fact that there's such a limited God pool currently available in this duo lane, it's pretty much just, are you playing Ishtar, Cern, or Cupid? And if not, if those gods are getting banned, you know, what do you go to? I'm kind of curious to see what Doug will go to in this set when you need an absolute win, right? You need to play through pressure, and We Pull Up knows that they can play through DonutDoug if they're able to facilitate that lane.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, is making sure that you get DonutDoug something comfortable to play on. You give him a little bit of breathing room in that dual lane. But again, up against Griff, who has been pretty aggressive in his lane, especially with a player like NotGeno piloting some of these more aggressive style supports like the Ymir, like the Athena. I think it's going to be difficult, but I think if you can get TeepIsBald and DonutDoug start up early, maybe get a rotation from PandaTurtle out to the dual lane early on and try and get either a kill or at least a TKO up against the opposition, try and send Griff back to base a little bit early, could be enough to at least give DonutDoug some room to play in that lane.
Yeah, and I think getting pressure for PandaTurtle as well could be massive, because he's run away with some of these sets before. When he's given things like the Thor, for example, he really can go to these lanes early on, look to go for some early ganks, and more often than not get credit for those kills. Sometimes, you know, you have those junglers that are going to gank a lane and say, hey, don't worry, buddy, you get that last hit. But I think giving them to PandaTurtle could also be a pretty good win condition here for We Pull Up.
Yeah, so now we can jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Kaolin Wardens and We Pull Up to see what some of those picks are going to be. We've been seeing a lot of Ishtar, a lot of Cernunnos, kind of the top 2 right now of the hunters in the dual lane. Imagine it'll probably be a case, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of first pick Ishtar. If it's not banned away in kind of this first phase, Ishtar has been that hunter that almost every team is willing to top pick no matter what. Even if Cernunnos is still available, seems that Ishtar is kind of that number 1, and that would be maybe a great option for DonutDoug on We Pull Up to try and be able to get some pressure. Seems that god plus just about any support can kind of run that dual lane. But as the ban starts to roll through already, it's Umoja, Cthulhu, and Thor banned away by the Kaolin Wardens. Other side, Dodgy and Vulcan, and then a Ymir to round out the final 3 bans for We Pull Up. And Ishtar going to be the first pick for Kaolin Wardens. No surprise there, Schlemy.
I mean, yeah, what did you expect? And that's a lot, right? Because the Thor was taken away from PandaTurtle, and it doesn't look like the Wardens actually wanted to first pick that god for Schlemy, probably smart to just grab the Ishtar in that slot. And I think, as you said, you can kind of just get pressure no matter what. The Cern was obviously going to be the other side of that coin, just because when you lose one, you want to make sure you grab the other, and I think that's going to be a smart look. But the Naja is being hovered for We Pull Up. That would be interesting, and it looks like it's going to be insta-locked, so a little bit of setup. I expect to see some big mage burst damage to follow that up, probably in the jungle. That's where we've seen it more often than not. Haven't seen that Naja support or Naja solo in quite some time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think the only other time we've seen Naja go somewhere else was like mid, and I want to say it was like Dardes playing it on the Warriors at one point to try and do something. So most likely we'll see PandaTurtle pilot this Naja. So I'm curious as to what big burst damage mid we'll see. I know at least for Nehu over on like the Yomi Tanuki, he was playing that over in the mid role. Really is kind of the only one doing that. So maybe we'll see Scylla, which has been a little bit more likely. But on the opposite side, at least it is a Tyr and Sylvanus. So some AoE control, some healing, at least on the side of Sylvanus. Some nice single target lockdown for this Tyr, who has kind of just been rising amongst the ranks of the solo lane. We've been seeing a lot of solo laners kind of pick up this Tyr. But talking about solo lane, Charlie, how can we forget that Uzzy is on We Pull Up when Cthulhu was banned? Artio the next go-to god for him.
Yeah, finally we get to see some Uzzy gods in that lane. We got to see him play Cthulhu once and then the Odin a couple times as well, but this is what I was looking for. He loves him some Artio, and it's got a good matchup into tier as well. Being able to cripple out that Fearless can be extremely annoying in lane. I've been that tier, and I don't like Artio. You know, and not when you're in that matchup, but next wave of bans, that Scylla's not going to get through, and that's what I was looking for as well. Some big burst follow-up damage to that Naja, and it looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit longer because it's going to be the Terra locked in that next slot. Looks like both of these comps are going for a little bit of sustain here with the Sylvanus and the Terra and the Artio. I guess pretty much everyone on the side of WePull Up has a little bit of built-in sustain to their kits.
Yeah, Pele and Osiris, the bans by WePull Up, Scylla Ganesh, and then with the Terra lock in, it's an answer back to Opwash, and that's a lot of self-sustain really on the side of the team. Terra's got some team sustain, but outside of the ultimate, you're almost always using that monolith for the CC portion of it, not necessarily the healing there unless you're waiting for the next fight to happen. So a lot of it kind of comes out of your control. You know, Artio's going to walk up and hit you with the 1 or the 3. Boom, Naja's going to want to get his self-sustain through there. So Opwash maybe not completely out of the question or out of thought there, but definitely going to take some interesting piloting from moswal on that pick, plus the Tsukuyomi there. And then a Thoth. There's your big burst that you were looking for, Trelly.
That is the big burst damage I was looking for, but how can I not talk about the Outwash pick, right? It's one of those gods that can sneak its way through whenever there is a lot of healing built into the draft, and I'm looking at Terra more specifically, right? When that ult gets popped and you just get that fleeting breath on you, you're pretty much stunning someone in that point, right? So could be, if moswal plays it well, which we know he has, I mean, he's won world championships off of this character sometimes. So I think he's been able to pilot this Outwash pretty decently. It's also very easy to dive. Naja Thoth outrange the heck out of this Outwash. So if you're able to get to this pick consistently, it doesn't actually get that anti-heal off, but if you're able to protect this Outwash, and there is a tanky front line here for the Wardens, and I think it may be able to succeed.
Yeah, I think the big burst follow-up off that Naja is probably the big key here. A lot of lockdown, a lot of setup for this Thoth. He can freehand the ultimate if he needs to, or he can wait for the Naja ult to go through, wait for the Terra stuns, maybe for this Artio to kind of get in there and help out onto this one. I want to talk a little bit about the Tsukuyomi, though, because we don't get to see this pick very often. Right. A couple of junglers at the SPL have played him through there. Think like Sam, Scream, maybe even. How do you kind of feel about Tsukuyomi for this composition for the Kaolin Wardens?
Well, when I see Tsukuyomi, I imagine full-on dive is coming through, and it doesn't really look like that's what the Wardens have. They've got Tyr, who does want to dive pretty hard, but Sylvanus, if you're not blink initiating, you're probably sitting in the back and protecting your carries, you know, using those whiffs for some healing and protections, things like that. So it's gonna have to be, you're gonna have to hold on to that ultimate pretty well. If Schlemy is piloting the Tsukuyomi, which is certainly possible unless it's the Tyr jungle once again, you're gonna have to hold on to that piercing moonlight until you have guaranteed a kill, or you know you're gonna get a relic and be able to get out, because Tsukuyomi can't really take it back. The second that ult hits, you're in there. Like, you actually have to be committed to that fight. So just something the Wardens are gonna have to play around, and exactly if Schlemy knows, like, hey, we're going in, everyone follow me, then I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
So we know kind of how the late game looks for some of these ones. I mean, Tyr's going to be fairly tanky, go in there, be kind of a nuisance to the back line. Opwash going to have a ton of burst over towards his name there, Tsukuyomi as well. Which of these teams, though, kind of earlier in this game needs to kind of get the ball rolling to kind of help themselves a little bit more so in the late game? Is it the Tsukuyomi that needs to kind of get active involved early so that way the Opwash can start to flourish? Is it that Naja needs to get a little bit more active? I mean, which of these two junglers kind of needs to be the one to hit the gas pedal a little bit sooner? I
mean, I would say the Naja gets a little bit worse as the game goes on, just because you're only fighting when, you know, you can really force that ultimate, and if you have beads up, it doesn't really matter. Even if you hit that ultimate, it's just going to get beads and you're not going to get any value, whereas Tsukuyomi is pretty much always going to get value out of that piercing moonlight. You're either Aegising or you're dying late game. So I would say we pull up probably wants to win the early, but at this point they both have great mages to just carry those fights, so I don't think it's one side or the other.
Well, we'll see which of these two North American squads can take game number one off each other as we jump into that first game with Dulcin and Gormizer.
That's right. Maybe the highest impact, the highest intensity matchups we've got this weekend. One team moving on to the next round, one team heading home. And we pull up, Gore, they have made waves this weekend, the SOC squad. And now hoping to get it done against one of our SCC teams one more time.
Yeah, being able to do it once already has been an accomplishment. But I really like what they have, and you could hear it on the desk. At least draft-wise, there's a lot of win conditions. Mm-hmm. The downside is that the Wardens It's so weird. Sometimes it's 50-50. Sometimes they show up and you're just like, man, if we got that Wardens every single game, we're talking contesting first seed. We're talking about a team that is going to be able to bring a lot. And I think that they've done something very unique here in the Wardens, in that they are playing their style. This is not like just something that is going to be the meta. I don't expect to see these gods take over the world at Worlds. But this is something like moswal is playing Opwash.
Really, you're not expecting
moswal's
Opwash
really
at Worlds?
good. If moswal's there, I expect the
There you go.
Opwash. So if they make it through, maybe we can expect the Opwash. But like Sylvanus has a place, but they're not necessarily up at the top. But it's something that the Wardens play so well. And so I have high expectations for what this draft is going to be able to do, just based on what they have accomplished in the past on these gods.
Yeah, look, I guess I'm an Opwash fan. I'm a fan of the unique, and Opwash is certainly that. Also brings a bit of anti-heal. Going to be very important. Uzzy's got some PandaTurtle little burst healing. Of course, TeepIsBald on the Terra here. Going to supply some nice healing to the We Pull Up roster. So Opwash, maybe a little extra utility for this Wardens team.
There's a lot to talk about. Not even just the anti-heal, though, but like the capability of CCing somebody because they healed while that was available. Like, that's going to be really easy. You're either cutting off that avenue of healing, or you're going to allow a lot. It's a 1.5 second stun. Like, that's nothing to really scoff at. And so you have this opening for moswal that you're going to, in the middle of a team fight, just decide that Teep can't use certain abilities, and that PandaTurtle can't use certain abilities, Uzzy can't use certain abilities, or else Soul Reaper, DonutDoug, somebody might get stunned because of it. And so there's definitely an avenue where this Opwash, not only to me feels good into this comp because of that little kind of counterplay, but because of the anti-heal, as you had highlighted it, a big denial of play area that he can just throw onto the field. I think there's a lot that he can do that is just going to really it's going to force We Pull Up to play carefully, right? And maybe not even carefully. It's going to force them to play a style that it's going to slow them down, and it's going to ruin some engagements for them. And so that's, as long as moswal, which we know he plays Opwash well, as long as he can keep it to the par that we have for him, I expect We Pull Up to struggle a little bit in some of the team fights.
Anything that knocks the opposing team off their game, even just a little bit, is going to be a net win. Net win for We Pull Up. They'll secure their own red buff on an attempted invade from the Kaolin Wardens duo lane. Now, Griff has really surprised me this weekend for this Kaolin Wardens team. Feels like, as far as the AD carry role this weekend, now, granted, we've gotten more data on the Wardens team because they've had some very contested sets, and maybe some of the favorites here in the North American SCC have rolled through their opponents a bit quicker. I think Griffith has maybe been the AD carry of the event so far. In some of the play that we've seen, specifically on this Ishtar, has taken games over and given the Kaolin Wardens just that extra bit of boost. So limiting Griff, I think, going to be very important for this We Pull Up squad here today. And DonutDoug, look, over in the duo lane, has some competitive experience at this level. Nothing to scoff at either. I think Griff has, in my opinion, taken the crown here so far this weekend. But this style of matchup, Ishtar into Cern, really sets up both for what you would think would be pretty good games here in Game 1.
Well, especially after what we've been seeing, and I'd have to double check for like SPL stats specifically, but that stuff isn't fully relevant right now, right? Like, I mean, when it comes to this weekend and what we have seen, and this one's just going to be the eye check, but Ishtar's been running the show, right? I mean, it has just been so difficult in lane to not get 1v1 to just soloed out by the Ishtar. It's been so consistent on that side, and the few times that we've seen her lose or struggle has been when there have just been some really, really good pressure games against the duo lane. So, Griff, I think, like you said, not just as a player, but I think on the god that they're playing as well, you need a little bit more going on over here. So I turned to PandaTurtle, and I want to see Griff already with a death or no beats at this point, and in the next 3 minutes, a second one on there. And so maybe going a little too slow. If you just let the Ishtar farm up, especially now that, Devo's Gauntlets is going to be up pretty soon, once I'm assuming Griff backs over the next wave or two, it's going to be a big issue.
Red buff invade round 2 for the Kaolin Wardens, and empty the crypt for the first time this game, but also a piercing moonlight. DonutDoug is clipped, but not taken down. Instead, it's DonutDoug on the first blood fadeaway. Gryph sends out the stun, forces a few beads. Oh, we pull up their solo. But the Kaolin Wardens simply don't have the range and just barely not enough damage. Geno gets the root in the auto, and that is terrible for the Kaolin Wardens. We pull up, we'll rotate in and pick up 2. And the red health bars will remain red. They will not reach 0. And it's a 1-2 punch from We Pull Up.
And that is a classic. Look, the first fight, the first kill that goes on to Schlemy, that's just in the moment, right? We Pull Up is playing the fight well. They get low, but that's just going to be the job hazard of being a Tsukuyomi in the middle of a team fight. Geno dies strictly because Geno chases for kills. That is tunnel vision through and through. And there's not much you can do about it, right? I mean, you know, Geno dying is not the end of the world, but knowing that everybody got away, nobody followed up, nobody came with, you know, you use your blink for that kind of thing, doesn't help too much. And giving a second kill over to We Pull Up was a pretty comfortable lead that the Wardens have been able to build up just kind of passively without any kills. It helps alleviate a lot of that pressure. And giving it over to the duo lane where you already wanted the pressure for your team means that DonutDoug is going to be just as much, if not more, in this conversation than he would have been otherwise.
Moswal, aggressive towards Soul Reaper. Soul Reaper just a moment ago let that final judgment go. Nearly snacks a kill onto Schlemy, but Schlemy way out of range. Now later on in the game, those Piercing Moonlight score delivering Schlemy free into the backline will be a bit more impactful than what we just saw. But again, fighting over in duo. It's Earthen Fury down from TeepIsBald on a purple buff invade. That's no good from the Kaolin Wardens. RelentlessOne under a bit of pressure as well, but that's over on the other side of the map. Got a Lawbringer though, and a Fearless. But no more mana. Soul Reaper rotates forward, doesn't have Final Judgment. PandaTurtle beads,
Good
but
slow.
no blink. And a Sash forces the beads from RelentlessOne. And that'll be it. We Pull Up core, they're just consistently, though, behind in gold, finding these small bits of value on attempted aggressive plays from the Wardens.
Yeah, I'm honestly really impressed with that play from PandaTurtle. Again, and it's just the small moments, making sure that you get some pressure. RelentlessOne, you can tell there's a couple minutes or seconds of maybe I can get a good Fearless here. You know, 1v2, maybe I can do something that turns into I've got to get out of this. No mana to work with. And just being able to hit that slow for PandaTurtle, use the Sash, put this tier in a position where he has to use the beads. And now that opens up either a gank opportunity for you. You know the ult's down for a little longer, so you can go back over there, although PandaTurtle doesn't have their ult just yet, so it might take a little while. But it really does make it easier to control that lane if you want to put pressure over it. If you don't, you still have pressure that you can throw in mid. Beads are still up, so maybe it's not a kill onto moswal, but you can make them feel uncomfortable. This might honestly be one of the more passive games that we've actually seen from PandaTurtle so far. And I don't mind it because it's just waiting for the things around them to be powerful. This is a draft that I think the NotGeno could start a fight anytime in the game. But it's better to wait patiently until everybody around you is strong enough to capitalize on what that Sash is going to bring. For the moment, really what you're going to get out of it is, can I burn their beads? And if so, what's the follow-up? If Soul Reaper has ult, at this point, probably a kill if you can combo the two and they land into it. But if you wait 5 more minutes, give them 2-3 more items, suddenly it's a guaranteed kill every single time. And that becomes, I think, a huge deal for PandaTurtle. So I like the pace from We Pull Up, even if it does mean that currently they haven't been able to take the gold lead.
My goodness. Well, the Kaolin Wardens, they have now invaded purple a couple times in a row, red buff a couple times in a row. Unfortunately for the Kaolin Wardens, We Pull Up has been able to secure their own buffs. And on the attempted red buff a few minutes ago, I guess at this point, also grabbed the first couple of kills. But the Wardens showing their consistency. Gryph showing his ability to hit auto attacks. Actually forces the Wild Hunt out of DonutDoug. And another red buff invade. And another one actually gets secured by We Pull Up. It's these attempted invades that are keeping the aggression up for the Kaolin Wardens. Just haven't been able to deal a killing blow on any of those buffs. And what's worse is PandaTurtle stealing away the blue buff from the Kaolin Wardens. And you know what? I think PandaTurtle has also surprised me in the same way that I think Gryph has played a phenomenal tournament for the Kaolin Wardens so far. I think We Pull Up that this SOC squad, you know, you're assuming they could take some games off the SCC teams. Early on, PandaTurtle has made waves in this event and now sends a gank towards mid and grabs a kill for Uzzy onto moswal. A piercing moonlight, maybe the death of PandaTurtle here. One more auto from Schlemy will do it, but a root from TeepIsBald out of dual lane locks Schlemy down and forces Uzzy to step forward to secure the double. And we pull up, counter the aggression of the Kaolin Wardens in mid and swing another 2 for 1.
And again, play it well. PandaTurtle, there's only one thing in there that goes wrong, and it's the ult's a little wide. But at the end of the day, the person he was aiming for, Schlemy at the time, still had beads, and 2 seconds later, Schlemy has to use the beads. So you still get something out of that, despite the fact that PandaTurtle, I think, eats a tower shot for it. Otherwise, very clean engagement for him, and like you said, good kind of counter initiation and playing incredibly well. It does remind me, I mean, last week we were talking about it, and I have to give the shout out to personnel because I think their drafting capabilities were phenomenal. And I think what we got to see in a few of their games were that their on-field play was phenomenal as well. They were really able to step up. I think we pull up, though. I mean, at this point, especially with how some of these teams have been playing, they've already eliminated one SCC team. That's got to get you motivated, if anything. And I think they're the kind of team that can do it. I mean, if you look at it, the talent that's there has been around for a while and is more than capable of finding dubs. I mean, PandaTurtle, Uzzy, Teep, who I'm blanking on what it was a rename, but I know he was a rename, and I know he's been around a while, and that's Mineral.
Yep.
That's Mineral that has been playing. And then DonutDoug, who, while maybe hasn't been around as long as the other 3 I just named, has still been in the scene for a while. You've got 4 really good competitive guys on We Pull Up that are putting in the work.
Very, very good team. That's a Lawbringer from RelentlessOne. Fearless back onto Uzzy. We'll use the beads, but the beads simply not enough, and the Kaolin Wardens with a simple 1-kill pick. What's happened to Geno elsewhere in mid? His health bar brought to 2%. But 2%'s not 0, so the Sylvanus remains. 1 for none for the Kaolin Wardens over in mid, but it's a rotation out from Griff, and of course he's gonna hit his autos, makes it a 2 for none. Maybe a bit of wind in the sails of the Kaolin Wardens here.
Yeah.
Not an immediate pull, though, onto either of the 2 neutral objectives.
I mean, after the 3 plays we've seen this game prior to that were just really good from We Pull Up, that one was great from the Wardens, right? Isolating Uzzy like super early on, the person who got a double kill last time, clearing up the Artio, and making sure that they're going to have trouble. And then PandaTurtle just didn't have really anything to work with. Nobody was there. Teep, again, gets Geno really low, but they don't have much follow-up. And so earlier they got away with a lot of stuff. Now the Warden's able to punish that same level of aggression. And this is what you like to see, I think, a little bit more, right? If you go back to it, and you were talking about the invades that the Wardens were doing, playing the map, but how all of them were falling short. We were probably talking about a like 2,000 gold lead if they were able to get all of the invades they went for.
Yeah.
And while they haven't been able to get to that amount of gold just yet, the way they're playing the map after these fights is still just a little stronger than what we're seeing from We Pull Up.
It's good initiation. Oh my, Griffin Geno. Talk about a 1-2 punch. It's a pull, it's a Wrath of Terra, and it's a dash in from Griff. And DonutDoug, simply no chance. Used the beads, didn't have Aegis, didn't have time to even use the Wild Hunt. This time the purple buff invade, good. And the kill, good as well. And I think mentality-wise, it's forced We Pull Up to send 3 to the red buff. They've split it 3 ways now, so really you're just confirming the buff for Soul Reaper more so than really building up golden XP. And you can see now moswal's 2 levels ahead of Soul Reaper over in mid. Top net worth in the game as well by about 1,000. So this op wash, though, hasn't had the dazzling name in the lights plays just yet, has been able to farm up quite well, and moswal's at a spot where this burst damage should be just around the corner.
Yep.
and really nicely 3-slotted now at the 15-minute mark.
I think a lot of it will depend on Schlemy as well, that's set up right for them. Although moswal, again, it feels so, it's not a huge circle on the map. It's not a big targeter. It's not a crazy long stun. It's only 1.5 seconds. I do genuinely think that moswal is going to find maybe more CC than Geno in this game because like it just feels like something that you're not going to actively think about. I mean, how many times are you scrimming against an Opwa?
Once a year, maybe. I don't know. PandaTurtle. Oh, goodness. RelentlessOne goes back in despite a final judgment flying right down the right side of the jungle. And the clean one-man pick for the Kaolin Wardens means Gold Fury now the target. They've got burn, but also steal potential from We Pull Up as they step forward into the Fury pit. The DPS continues, and the Kaolin Wardens lock down the Gold Fury, and maybe a fight after the fact as well. Fearless sends Uzzy into the beads. And an up and over on the Lawbringer means RelentlessOne can continue this chase. The Artio an afterthought. moswal sends damage over the wall. And now it's getting dangerous for We Pull Up. They've lost a couple team members in the last couple of minutes. They've lost the Gold Fury as well. The biggest lead of the game now built for the Kaolin Wardens.
And I mean, little moments where admittedly Soul Reaper's able to get out of there, but you give up a TKO. You're getting a lot of pressure now that's done in mid. You had mentioned it, but like the gold that's all of a sudden in the favor of the Wardens. It feels like, and I still really like We Pull Up's team comp for late game, but when you're going to get Griff off to a tear like this, you've got a composition that, while high execution, is executing on that. You're finally able to steal a red buff if you're the Wardens. Feels like things are starting to come up their way. I'm keeping my eyes on Schlemy, though. I feel like it's this jungle matchup in this game, maybe the supports as well, that really is going to be the thing that dictates it. Because, you know, moswal and Griff are going to be phenomenal follow-up, and I think Griff has a lot of setup on their own. But Soul Reaper for DonutDoug over there, you really are going to maybe need the help of PandaTurtle or Teep to get some of that damage a little more guaranteed. So I want to watch them and what they can do.
Well, PandaTurtle now with a chance to help out with a kill on a Schlemy. Well-timed beat, sash, all of it. This will be a kill. But We Pull Up very far forward. RelentlessOne sends the Lawbringer in. Uzzy doesn't have beads. Gets knocked back, pulled, brought right into the crypts that are now empty thanks to moswal. The burst damage got to be enough, and that's another for the Opwash. We Pull Up do maybe just a bit too much on an overextension. They'll still take a 1-for-1, but Schlemy not necessarily a priority target. Was, I suppose, ahead in levels of PandaTurtle, but Uzzy was as well over RelentlessOne on the other side. You're talking about build, though, and pacing. PandaTurtle goes Transcendent second, and that was like 6 minutes ago. It has taken a long time for PandaTurtle to get this Transcendent stacked up. We're right around the corner from a big power spike, but right now it's been a lot of CC for the Naja, and you're going to get the damage maybe on layaway. I like the idea from Griff, but no good, and that's left DonutDoug open. Push down a tier 1 tower. Small victory for We Pull Up.
Sometimes small victories. Actually, in games like this, maybe that's the most important. Getting a tower, 500 gold, nothing to scoff at. And it puts you in a position where you can maybe start to fight. Pyromancer, you can already see the Wardens grouping up for it, so you have to imagine if you have We Pull Up here, it is all about trying to find the small amounts of gold you can put into your pocket to kind of chip away at the Wardens, to keep you within shooting distance, especially when it comes to fire giant discussions, right? Because that's really where the pathway, at least, is for the Wardens right now.
I wonder what the call is. The Wardens see their support getting jumped on left. That's a simple kill for We Pull Up, but really no one from the Wardens in position to immediately pull the Fire Giant on the other side of the map. Again, small victories. A clean kill for We Pull Up. And the Wardens do get the Pyro, so it's not the Fire Giant, but it's the Pyromancer picked up on the right side. Link in and stun onto Griff. But Griff quick on the B. It's needed to happen. PandaTurtle was right there around the corner as well with that fully stacked Transcendence. So We Pull Up, Gore, starting to funnel a bit of their pressure towards the left side of the map, seeing if they can draw the Wardens away from this Fire Giant. But Geno's going to be up now. I imagine that'll be a early and often conversation for the Kaolin Wardens. When do we feel comfortable pulling out this FG? Because got a pretty healthy lead.
The good news about having a Thoth on your team for We Pull Up, and you know, admittedly you're still down in gold, but you've got steal potential for miles, and most of that is just because he literally has the distance to shoot it for miles and miles, it feels like. So I think Soul Reaper is going to be a big deal here, although 3 levels down, like his damage is going to be lacking. I think that's where a lot of this problem is. A lot of it is more in the experience than it is in the gold. And we've seen that a lot so far this weekend, but when you have 2 levels for your carry, 3 levels for your mid laner, it becomes more difficult. Like, if I'm We Pull Up here, you're not in the conversation for Fire Giant. You're in the conversation for Fire Giant steal. But you're not able to start that objective or successfully feel like you are able to walk into the pit and take it. That Fury on the other side you could fight at, but it's so difficult if Wardens want to put up a fight there to make that stand.
Sometimes all it takes is a pull, and that's what Geno's got onto PandaTurtle, and now suddenly the decision-making a bit easier for the Kaolin Wardens. You got a 5v4, you got a Fury that's spawning in 3 seconds. And you've got a tier way behind the We Pull Up roster here. This Fearless, if connecting onto enough members of We Pull Up, could send the backline into the front line, but look at how nervous the We Pull Up backline have to play. They're nowhere close to this Fury pit. Now the decision's just been made, and so RelentlessOne, simply by positioning, has forced We Pull Up back, and DonutDoug and Soul Reaper were attempting to wail away at this tier, but didn't do enough damage. And so that's a really nice, it's a quiet frontline play there from RelentlessOne. Simply the positioning near perfect to keep the We Pull Up roster at bay.
And able to continue going in. I mean, I love this kind of positioning, just fearless, chain, aggression. Your team has a lead. If you get a kill here, you get a single pick, that's a fire giant.
That's right, you can immediately go to the right side of the map. We Pull Up, I think, privy to that, realizing the weight of this situation. Back away from the non-existent tier 1 tower. Uh-oh, Griff's here, and he's on a killing spree. TeepIsBald learns the hard way. That's a 3-man stun from Uzzy. And PandaTurtle gets the beads off of Schlemy, but watch out, a piercing moonlight could send the Tsukuyomi right back in, but he's way too low. Now it's up to RelentlessOne to reinitiate this fight. Uzzy stunned, shoved against the wall, and handing a double over to RelentlessOne. And it's 3 picks for the Kaolin Wardens. Could be 4 if Griff finds the autos, but no. Geno for 3, Warden's happy with it. And we'll see if this positioning shifts itself to the right.
Yeah, I mean, with the TKO on a couple players, you're going to have to wait for them to reset anyway. You get a nice speed buff steal on top of that. You could theoretically go straight for it. Still 15 seconds before PandaTurtle's back, 30 before Uzzy's back. Numbers advantage kind of seems to me like it would dictate for the Wardens to get this fire giant. And they definitely still have the wiggle room. The travel time that it would take for PandaTurtle to get there is massive. But the fact that they haven't gone for it yet feels like, yes, like you have time, but like every single second is stripping away the advantage you have, right? Like, so your damage is going to be there, you get those backs off, things like that, but now suddenly all 5 members of We Pull Up are alive again. 4 of them are able to be at the FG.
Soul Reaper, can you make a steal happen? Fire Giant's low. Final Judgment, way too far away, and that's the Wardens with FG. Griff backflips away, thanks to TeepIsBald, but the damage not heavy enough just yet. Looks like this Terra will be able to make it back to base. Still a tier 1 tower over to right. Griff just shy of getting the ultimate stun. And so We Pull Up, you know, it's always those threatening moments. You don't really contest the fire giant. You attempt to steal. If you get caught out while you're backing away, suddenly you're losing your Phoenix for free. We'll at least see a defense here from the We Pull Up squad.
And with the timing that they had, if Soul Reaper's on like a Scylla, that steal probably is a lot closer, right? It's just that charge up that you have to channel for the final judgment, things like that. Maybe making it harder. 2-man Fearless on top of that. You can't be getting caught like that in the jungle.
No, you can't. Piercing Moonlight plus Griff. That'll seal the deal, and RelentlessOne has set it up, and another Fearless sends Soul Reaper into the wall. Then another kill for Griff on the double, but it's hand-delivered on a silver platter by the Kaolin Wardens solo laner. And this is where tiers can, obviously early on in the game, but your full build, and you're far ahead, and you can simply do as you please. When you're able to just walk behind the opposing team and send a Fearless back, you are in dreamland as a tier player. And that's now opened up a spearhead for the Kaolin Wardens, who drop the mid lane Phoenix. And they're in a 5 versus 2, and it looks like the Kaolin Wardens strong enough and confident enough to walk away with game number 1. Uzzy pushed away from the defense. The Kaolin Wardens, they've got too much here, Gormizer, and the respawn's simply too far away. We'll call it game number 1. Maybe after some stat padding to the Kaolin Wardens, DonutDoug with no Wild Hunt doesn't stand much of a chance. Griff ends this game 7-0-6. And Undying for the solo laner as well. Fantastic start to this set for the Wardens.
Yeah, I think in watching that game, you know, you have to shout out because they were top of the damage charts, Griff and moswal for doing what they did. I think moswal specifically around those objectives, the ult, the corpse explosion setup that you get. I mean, if you're going to trust someone to play op wash, moswal's the guy, and it's just because of the way he handles that entire game. But I think that that RelentlessOne deserves maybe the biggest shout out for that. So many good fearlesses, so many good zones, so much frontline presence that came out of that tier. That there was a certain point where even though it was only like a few thousand gold separating them, RelentlessOne just had to be there, and We Pull Up couldn't really step up.
Yeah, there were plenty of corpses for moswal to explode here in Game 1. Plenty of deaths on the We Pull Up side. Fantastic start to this set for the Kaolin Wardens. They've now set the pace. It's up to We Pull Up to answer back in Game 2. Remember, tournament lives on the line. Game number 2 coming up right after this.
Welcome back to the NASCC Championships. The Kaolin Wardens, your SCC representatives, take game number 1 over the SOC squad in We Pull Up. Both these two teams still fighting for one of those slots to move into the elimination stage, and then from that point, moving on to fight towards the SWC. And not only are we having some Smite at the SWC, we're also going to have our annual cosplay competition over at the SWC. So make sure that you go to smitegame.com/SWC and sign up for our 9th annual cosplay contest. $9,000 in prizing up for grabs for the people who do take part in this event. So if you're a cosplayer to any degree, make sure that you sign up now because you don't have much time left. I mean, we're a month away from the SWC. Actually, we're less than a month at this point away. So make sure you sign up online. Plenty of different categories and different skill levels available to you as well. So sign up for this 9th annual Smite cosplay contest for SWC. Jumping back into the SCC, though, Charlie Relly, game number 1 over here for the Kaolin Wardens. Started off at least pretty decent for We Pull Up. A lot of fight back, a lot of fighting in the mid lane specifically, kind of throughout the early stages of this game. But as we start transitioning to this late game, this Artio really couldn't get much going for Uzzy, and Griff, at least on this Ishtar, showing why Ishtar is really still a top pick.
Yeah, it seemed like the side lanes, there were really no answers for, right? The Ishtar and the tier, specifically RelentlessOne, also had a fantastic performance. It just seemed like once he got to the back line, there was no stopping him. There was so much CC, but tier really doesn't care about the CC, and the Fearless is forcing those relics, and as you said as well, Griff popping off on the Ishtar. Also got to give credit to the power farming legend. moswal hit level 20 so early on this outwash. I think, you know, being able to kill an outwash really does help out, but late game, that amount of anti-heal, that amount of AoE damage was a little bit too much as well. So just seemed like the Wardens were biding their time and waiting until they were able to get to, you know, 15, 20, 25 minutes into the game. And once they got to those points, they were looking real solid. They just had plenty of follow-up and more specifically the peel. It's just so difficult to be a carry when there's a tier in the back line that is just not letting you cast your abilities.
Yeah, I mean, this game ended very quickly, and it started out no problem. Griff was only, 1-0 going into the 19 or so minute mark, and then from 19 minutes onward, it was kill for Griff, kill for Griff, kill for Griff, and it's hard to come back and start winning some of these games when the ADC is getting as much farm as he is and as many kills he was towards the late. I mean, again, look, we were 3 minutes ago, and he was at 1-0, now sitting at 4, and then ends the game 7-0 on the Ishtar, again, showing just how prominent this god is. And I gotta think at this point, Charlie, with how successful Ishtar has been in the dual lane, with how many players have shown just how potent of a god this is, I gotta imagine if you're not in that first pick slot, you might be thinking of probably banning that one away.
Yeah, would not be the worst idea. It's just one of those situations where if you have the answer to it, where's it at? Because I have not seen it so far. The Cernunnos has always been a decent lane matchup. You can usually go even clear-wise once those team fights come about, and you can't lock down this Ishtar, and you can't deal with the amount of objective shred she provides with those shotgun auto attacks, then yeah, it could be a situation where if you're not first pick, you're not letting that character through. But if we pull up, get the chance to get, Ishtar or Thor, I'm thinking they probably still do want that Thor, because PandaTurtle and the Naja was able to find some success, took a couple ultimates up, but it just seemed like the Naja wasn't able to do that same level of AoE damage. It was just very single target.
Yeah, and it also felt like any time that we did see PandaTurtle successfully find somebody with that ultimate, could not really get Soul Reaper in there to capitalize off it. He's always being zoned away by this tier or by this Sylvanus, really unable to kind of get those impactful ultimates out there. No, that's not to say that Soul Reaper didn't look good on the Thoth throughout the game, was able to get a couple of kills to his name and quite a bit of assists out there. We'll see what does get changed up. Picks and bans of game number 2 between the Kaolin Wardens and We Pull Up. Remember, this is an elimination set for one of these two teams and a promotional set for the other one. Loser, their tournament is done here and now. Winner will move on alongside the Eldritch Hounds in Group A to then join the ranks of some of the other teams from Group B for a final elimination bracket that will start today and obviously end out tomorrow, where we send 2 teams to the SWC group stage. And as the bands start going through, Wardens immediately target out Uzzy. They're not going to let Uzzy have any of his comfort picks, taking the Artio and the Cthulhu, as well as a Dachi towards the jungle. And We Pull Up will ban away the Ishtar, the Vulcan, and the Umoja. That does leave Thor open, which could be a good option for maybe Schlemy to first pick, but instead, it's going to be Cernunnos as the top one, Charlie.
Which means We Pull Up definitely have that option, and I imagine Thor will be a topic of conversation, at least, for We Pull Up when they're deciding what they want to first pick. And that is going to be the call, but then the question then becomes, do you grab the Cupid here? Is that something you want to go into the Cernunnos? That usually is a solid answer back. You are able to get so much value out of Fields of Love, and it's pretty much the only, if you want a top 3 hunter, it's the only other option, right? So that could be the call, but because the Wardens already have Cern, you don't have to force it this early because they're probably not going to grab the Cupid in these top 2, so you have that option to say, we're going to grab the Horus in this case, grab some extra CC, and then maybe grab the Cupid before the next wave of bans.
Now, I am wondering if this Horus is going to be slotted towards the support. That's the most likely role that these Horuses typically go to, but we always do see at least shades of light over towards the soul lane sometimes for that pick. I guess as the remainder of the draft goes through, we'll see. Geno once again going to pilot the Sylvanus, taking that one and reprising his role from game number 1 on there. But a shift to Camazotz this time. We don't see very much Camazotz. Doesn't really scream CC at all. This is just a very high damage and dive style of god, which is exactly kind of a mirror of Tsukuyomi, maybe a little bit less in the CC department than that, but equally high in damage. Do you kind of like the Camazotz in a matchup like this?
I do like it, but I'm thinking in a matchup like this, just because it's RelentlessOne, I would not be surprised if that Camazotz goes solo, just because it does bring a ton of that damage, as you said, in the survivability, but it's still up in the air. There's still some flex potential there for the Camazotz to go jungle as well, but because there's a Guan, you are able to match that sustain and also sit very safe in that lane. With that being said, the Rama is going to be the lock-in there for DonutDoug on We Pull Up. Looks like once the Cupid was banned, which sort of makes sense, that's going to be the call. I think we've seen it played to mixed success, but if you can land those stuns, or the snipes rather, consistently, and you can stay in lane with the Cern and not try and box him, I think late game, Rama's got a pretty good time in this meta. That's
a good shout out to you for this Camazotz likely going solo lane, as Susano does get locked in for the Kaolin Wardens for Schlemy in the jungle, so RelentlessOne will be taking the Camazotz over that way. Huang to the mid lane. Now for moswal, maybe kind of more in line with the standard mages that we're used to, as opposed to the quote-unquote moswal mages that we've grown more accustomed to. And then with the Ram, it'll be a Baba Yaga for the mid lane matchup there. And to me, that this composition, at least for We Pull Up with the Guan Yu, the Ram, the Baba Yaga, this kind of feels like a very late game slanted style of team, but game one didn't really make it to the late game, Charlie. Is this Thor and this Horus early enough to maybe allow We Pull Up to get to that stage of the game?
I think the Horus is just going to be a CC bot, so it's pretty much all on PandaTurtle, right? If this Thor can get active and sort of delay that late game a little bit and try and, pump up that early, then they have a chance. And I think you're right, though. This comp does need to get a little bit later to see exactly how strong it can be.
One final chance for We Pull Up to see if they can knock out another SCC squad. Or is it going to be the Kaolin Wardens joining their brethren in the SCC up on the next round of play? To do that, we're going to get into game number 2 with Dulcet and Gore.
Kaolin Wardens have all the momentum now going into game 2. And they've got a good draft, Goremeister, the Kaolin Wardens do, to keep that momentum rolling. A somewhat aggressive pick that you can play over in the solo lane on the Camazotz. Now, Schlemy had an interesting game, and that's where I'm going to end up going here. You talk about aggression, you talk about playmaking ability. Got to talk about Susano in the jungle. Remember, Schlemy was the target of a lot of our conversation coming into this weekend. Sino leaves for the SPL. Schlemy steps in for this Kaolin Wardens team. Now draws a lot of attention. This Susano, a strong pick, a high potential pick, but requires a lot of confidence and a lot of aggression, spearheaded aggression, to play at this level.
And honestly, I think what we've seen, as interesting as it's going to be, is a good switch up. Where last game, We Pull Up was wait till late game, we've got the setup, and then we just got to get our carries online. Now you actually have people who can fight early on. I mean, Uzzy may be showcasing some of that already. But I'm looking at PandaTurtle. This Thor has been a real treat to watch over the last couple of weeks. But specifically, PandaTurtle's Thor has been very solid in order to keep things going. And I expect that that's going to be a big change-up for We Pull Up, and specifically how they're going to make this match go. The downside is that they're playing into an insanely solid comp. Like, Camazotz solo, we haven't seen as often. Sylvanus support isn't necessarily something big, but we just got to see Geno play it. But you've got the Cernunnos, you've got the Huang, and you've got a Susano. I mean, you've got 3 carries that are just going to get it done most of the time. So We Pull Up have a lot of work to do to make sure that doesn't happen.
They sure do. Got to look at PandaTurtle. I agree, Gore, on this Thor. We've seen some crazy Thor games over the course of this weekend already. I think PandaTurtle has the ability, the mechanical skill we've already seen to really make it happen. Schlemy actually takes the teleport back. And talk about playing a bit risky. You're living life on the edge on a Susano. And now maybe not under any real risk with a Baba Yaga on the other side of mid lane. Those types of plays, little sneaky teleports back, things like that. Maybe give you an idea of where the mindset is for the Kaolin Wardens jungler. I think a key for We Pull Up, though, Gore, is something they were unable to do in game 1, and that's limiting Gryph. Now, it's not the Ishtar, and so I think automatically
it's way easier
right,
automatically.
Easier to deal with. But Gryph, if left unchecked and allowed to free rotate into these fights, will make you pay. Gotta be some of the emphasis here for We Pull Up. PandaTurtle misses everything. RelentlessOne will be now even a bit healthier to attempt this blue buff invade. PandaTurtle in on the defense, and blue buff dropped by We Pull Up. And PandaTurtle will get out.
And I've got to give credit. I've watched quite a few PandaTurtle Thor games so far this weekend, and I can say one thing. And if we're missing every ability in the first 5 minutes, then you're winning the last 15, right?
That's right.
It is like clockwork. A little bit of a warm-up, really. You know, like the wall's just off the mark, hammer's just off the mark. And then in the next, well, maybe not 5 minutes, let's give him 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Suddenly he's one-tapping people, right? And that's the thing that I'm starting to expect out of PandaTurtle here. And so that's going to be where my eyes are, is the level 5, where the Thor dunks are, where the pressure's going to be, things like that. I think that we pull up and put themselves in a really good spot to be able to fight back. There's still definitely a lot of stuff, like you said, that they have to worry about. But as far as transitions from Game 1 to Game 2 go, I think they've made a really good step in their favor.
PandaTurtle over to Duo, gets rooted by Gryph. Gryph is on the wrong side of the lane here, but it's done enough damage to PandaTurtle. Wow. To send him back. There's an Anvil of Dawn now awaiting. That's the back that's getting channeled through the wall. The animation with the hammer swing can kind of look like he's getting ready to go. But no, it's the back animation for PandaTurtle. But now tops off that health bar and gets the tier 2 item on his way over to duo lane. So if Geno and Gryph stick around a bit too far, could end up being a dunk in, but won't be the case. And Schlemy, well timed. This is smart play from the Susano, realizing PandaTurtle was left and there was nothing for PandaTurtle to get there. Schlemy will steal away a good bit of the we pull up jungle. It needed to happen because it was about a half-level lead already for PandaTurtle, who set a bit of a quicker pace so far out of jungle. And we already had a little glimpse over in mid-gore. This Baba Yaga, obviously, right off the bat's not going to do much, but you talk about 10, 15, 20 minutes from now.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Soul Reaper, a bit more guaranteed damage in these fights than praying that a final judgment might hit or steal like he was in Game 1.
Yeah, I think this is a game for We Pull Up that you've got a lot of assets that can get relatively active early on, then transition into a pretty decent mid-game, right? I think everybody on We Pull Up sans the Baba Yaga has a pretty solid mid-game. Baba Yaga's mid-game isn't necessarily terrible, it's just her late game is phenomenal. And so, in comparison, the rest of her gameplay maybe doesn't seem as solid as the final form that she gets to bring. But if you look at We Pull Up, it's fine. Like, Soul Reaper is going to be just good enough in a lot of those mid-game fights, the levels 12 through like 16 area, 17 area, where PandaTurtle, Uzzy, Teep, and Doug are all going to be able to step up and do just the right amount of damage. Like, they're going to be the ones you can rely on. And that allows Soul Reaper to get some of that experience, really start to build up, and then go into the late game pretty easily. As long as they get their equal, right? That's kind of the big downside, is if you come into this 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 gold down from whatever the Wardens are farming, if they kind of get that kind of lead, all of a sudden Soul Reaper's job becomes a lot harder, and you are fighting a different style of smite for We Pull Up. You have a lot of people who want to play aggressive, and then a Baba Yaga who might be falling behind.
Yep. That's
going to be a little more of a struggle. Luckily, I think that they've set the appropriate pace, and they're on par for where they need to be.
TeepIsBald going to get pulled back by Geno. Could be seeing our first big Anvil of Dawn of the game if these health bars are low but not cleaned up. But Schlemy, hello! Sends a Typhoon in, and that's first blood, and it's good enough. The Firebolt's chasing down the Warden's jungler. Will not hit. DonutDoug from over the wall hits it. How about that snipe from the We Pull Up AD carry? But moswal has simply played this fight better. Double kill from the Huang. There is no more Anvil of Dawn for PandaTurtle. Simply, Gore, it is a better trade for the Kaolin Wardens. They get a 3-for-1 in the left side jungle fight.
Yeah, there's not many other ways to slice that. I mean, PandaTurtle, like, they go in, they think they have a lot of damage. Unfortunately, Schlemy exists and is a Susano, right? A lot of good damage that gets immediately dealt back, good knockups, that almost allows them to get out. Doesn't quite, just thanks to Doug's impeccable sniping. But there's so much from We Pull Up that just kind of goes wrong, right? You don't really, again, your mid laner isn't going to be hitting too hard. You're still stacking even at this point. So a fight with Soul Reaper doesn't feel great. Dying feels even worse. PandaTurtle, you had mentioned the Anvil of Dawn. It does come out, but it comes out way later than maybe you would expect to try and keep that fight going in their favor. Doesn't have a lot of follow-up because of that. And unfortunately for DonutDoug, you go up in the sky, you find a really good first shot, you find a good second and third shot, they hit. And then you land into the waiting arms of two members of the Wardens. There's just nothing your team's there to do for you because everybody else was dead by that point. And so I think just Wardens address the fight the way that you want. And unfortunately for We Pull Up, it does now mean a draft that I think is going to play really well into the late game.
Yep.
Gonna have to be a lot more careful than that when you're in the jungle, or else you're going to get ripped apart.
You got to take a you got to take a breather if you're going to get to the late game at this point. moswal, the big winner of that fight with the 2 kills and an assist, and now a 2-level lead over Soul Reaper. So, I mean, directly to your point, Gore, a pick that needs some time to scale up. This Baba Yaga already now not in a spot where you're going to feel comfortable competing with the Huang in the first 8 minutes of the game. Unless some kills are hand-delivered. You know, it's not the easiest to gank a Huang, but could be an option for PandaTurtle. It's Schlemy instead. That's caught out, and Villadon does make it up. And a wild hunt drops from oGryph, but Soul Reaper makes their way back towards the right, to the skies out. A clean pick. That is a tense moment where everyone's trying to get out, find a way to disengage. We pull up, able to make it happen.
Honestly, and it's, 2 ults, but they get 1 kill. They don't get the beads either, but you kill Schlemy. That's a huge deal to me.
Oh no, DonutDoug stepped forward to defend their own purple buff. Geno, is he under some pressure here? This would be big for the Baba Yaga, but my goodness, the damage from moswal reminds Soul Reaper just the way the mid lane's go in this game. Dueling Dragons, no. But now is maybe moswal under threat as oGryph is overstayed. This, not the cleanest brand of smite that we've seen from the Kaolin Wardens. Schlemy with the Typhoon will find 2 knockups. And moswal with another. This is an unbelievable start for the Kaolin Wardens mid laner, who's just on the edge of escaping, unless TeepIsBald has something to say about it.
Honestly, not much that Teep can say about it. Even if Teep has all the mana and cooldowns in the world.
Says goodbye.
Yeah, moswal's just going to be able to walk out of that one. Look, there's a lot for We Pull Up that, like you said, just becomes a little questionable. Same thing for the Wardens, right? It's not clean by any means. But the minute that DonutDoug goes down, you're in a very awkward spot for We Pull Up. You've got this rotation from mid that was coming through that now all of a sudden doesn't have anything it can really provide in context. Like, Doug just dies incredibly fast. Suddenly Soul Reaper's just there. And there's 3 members of the Wardens that can just turn around and go, oh, hey, look, free meal. And it's just a catastrophe of positioning for both teams at certain points, but definitely coming out in favor of the Wardens at the end of it. And a lot of it going on to moswal, like the Huang already having the lead that they have, now having like extra gold because of all the kills and everything. It really does start to maybe slam it home that the Wardens, moswal this time around, seems to be the one that needs to be looked at, because if Schlemy can get the Typhoon off, most of the rest of the kit's still great. You still want the damage.
Yeah.
The Typhoon followed up by literally anything from a Huang is going to be enough to find kills here. And so We Pull Up. It's going to be all about trying to find the right targets, but more so just cleaning up the fights. If you're going to go for a pick, get the pick and get out, and I think that goes for both sides. The Wardens overstay a little on left. The We Pull Up comes in, overstays a little on left, and then dies a little more on left. And so I think that there's definitely room for growth in those fights for both sides.
Schlemy hits a big power spike here. Hydra's Lament now completed. It's that 2-item power spike that we so often see from the Susano. Really hits hard early in the game. Bit of a meeting of the minds around the Gold Fury here. Again, poke damage is going to feel good for moswal here at 401. Now, maybe best case scenario for We Pull Up is Soul Reaper being the one who finally gets this shutdown, if it's going to arrive, onto moswal. Send some extra gold back right on the other side of mid lane. I mean, you know you need your mid laner to stack up and get to late game anyway if you're We Pull Up. Being the one to actually get the shutdown would be fantastic. Now, we haven't seen any action over on the right side of the map, really, in Game 1 or here in Game 2. But Uzzy's pulled a nice little lead over RelentlessOne, who does have Bat Out of Hell. Won't need it because the Anvil of Dawn didn't connect for the stun. Would have been nice and maybe just enough burst damage for Uzzy to finally get the kill, but just based on tower health, clearly the pressure of this lane filtering towards Uzzy on this Guan Yu.
And a lot of that with Camazotz is usually how it goes, right? Like, Camazotz isn't going to be able to, most of the time, find crazy 1v1s, but late game it's going to be deep dive into the backline.
Uzzy actually might be able to scrap on this bit. Well, not that moswal. Now that moswal is here, likely not, but Uzzy was feeling just fine in the 2v1. moswal makes the difference, and it's a rampage for the Huang at 5-0-1. in the first 12.5 minutes of game 2. Yeah, it's always an interesting conversation because now moswal clearly the win condition for this Wardens team. And so you start saying, okay, well, can we pull up, finally find the shutdown, and then make the Wardens feel bad, I guess, that all 5 of the kills are on one guy and tilt the scales back a little bit? moswal's been playing just too clean. And this Huang now, most wanted #1, I think, from this We Pull Up roster.
Yeah, I mean, has to be. Not just because of the 5-0-1, but I mean, even the Dueling Dragons, we just had, like, we're seeing moswal play out of his mind. I mean, the amount of abilities he's connecting on is just better than what we're seeing out of We Pull Up. And, you know, again, I hate to throw PandaTurtle under the bus. Admittedly, he still has 30 seconds left before that 12 minutes I said earlier where he starts hitting and gets to control some things.
There you go.
Got a little wiggle room. You can see the hints of it there, and actually might be able to get a kill onto Geno. I don't know if they have enough to chase down Griff. But little things like that are going to be even more important because otherwise, so far this game has quite literally been cut and dry. moswal's hitting abilities, Schlemy's hitting abilities, PandaTurtle and Soul Reaper are not, right? Or even when they are, it's just you're playing a Baba Yaga who was still stacking earlier, so that ability didn't hit as hard, things like that. And so now you've got PandaTurtle going for the Transcendence again, not uncommon, but if you're talking about someone trying to step up and kind of really be big over the next 3 or 4 minutes, that might not be it, right?
Wow.
It's going to take a little while, I think, for them to feel confident.
Uzzy controlling the right side of the map. Not only drops the tier 1 tower, stun onto Schlemy, and solo onto Schlemy. Typhoon, not enough to disengage. And Uzzy's had a fantastic last 30 seconds or so. Has dropped the first tower of the game, given some gold over to his team, and gotten the Susano off the map. And look at the reply from We Pull Up. That is pull the Gold Fury. Now there is steal potential from this Kaolin Wardens team. But you still got to favor We Pull Up. They'll get the Gold Fury and an Anvil of Dawn. Goes down behind the Kaolin Wardens, but Hammer only gets PandaTurtle so far. Dueling Dragon sets up for Griff. PandaTurtle probably wants that one back, but We Pull Up still happy to grab a kill, grab a Gold Fury, grab a tier 1 tower, and that gives them the gold lead.
You've got to feel good about the Gold Fury. You've got to be confused, though. And it's a lot of just watching how that unfolds. Everybody else, the Anvil of Dawn comes through before the Fury comes down, and most of the time, that's enough to ward people off, right? If somebody steps in, you can stun them, things like that. Every other member of We Pull Up after the Fury falls goes back. They go north on the map. They are going towards their base. And then you see PandaTurtle jump in. And there's some disconnect. I don't know what the communication was. There's no reason to fight there. You just got an objective for free. You're like Uzzy got something. It just feels like an unnecessary throwaway from PandaTurtle. And it's a small mark that just mars an otherwise really solid play for him. Wardens being able to kind of help clean up the rest of the map, have buffs that are on the board that they can maybe run into, get a little extra gold that wouldn't have otherwise been as easy to get because it would have been a 5-on-5 or at least even numbers across the board. Is going to make it so that it's not a massive lead for either of these teams. But you have to start watching plays like that. And I mean, if you're going to try to win, if you're going to keep your tournament life going, that's the kind of thing you can't do around a Fire Giant, or else you'll lose way more than just the one player.
So We Pull Up, though, despite what has also, been a very difficult start to this game, still worried about maybe priority #1 here, Gore, and that's moswal at 5:02. No one's had an answer for the Huang yet, and plenty of times we've seen Huang get themselves precarious situations. How is he going to disengage from this? He's going to Celestial Flight away, as you'd expect. That's a blink out of TeepIsBald. moswal from over this wall can send some damage to DonutDoug. Looking a little worse for Ware as well. As Ram gone double crit, so is Griff. And the itemization from TeepIsBald, I think, tells you aggression on their mind as well. And Gauntlet of Thieves right into the sledge. A little hybrid tankiness, but also some damage here, Gore, and I imagine we're going to be seeing that blink get used quite often. if TeepIsBald has anything to say about it. Here's some nice chain CC. It's connecting onto Geno. DonutDoug and PandaTurtle, they've got enough damage to clean up the kill, but his Gryph stuck around too long as well. He has it. To the skies from TeepIsBald. That'll send the Horus back. And again, though, it's a fantastic opening play from WePullUp. And then dropped by the Thor, getting caught out. So now we stand at a 1-for-1. moswal shutdown, yes! It goes to DonutDoug. It's a great now fight for WePullUp. That really flips it right on back, getting the big 5-kill shutdown and handing it to DonutDoug. Would have loved it to go onto the Baba Yaga. But getting it onto anyone, fantastic.
I mean, my God, just looking at what they've been able to do.
That was a Gold Fury type swing.
Yeah, right? I mean, it is insane. The cost, right? You kill off that. First off, you also make it a 2-for-1. So that feels immediately amazing for you. You get a lot of gold. And there's 2 people on this team. Man, you know what? I'll give it 3 people on this team that could benefit from that. PandaTurtle, who is dead, so unfortunately won't be able to. Would have been nice because the shutdown experience would have been solid to get the Thor maybe back into the conversation a little heavier. But getting it onto the Baba Yaga or getting it onto the Ram, any of your late game carries is going to be a big win for you. I believe hasn't even fully backed, just now backed. And that's a sell immediate purchase into a Deathbringer. So like really big power spike for DonutDoug.
Wow.
You're
Yeah,
getting
sells
into
the starter.
late game conversation for the Baba Yaga. I think WePullUp with that shutdown, with that play, have finally put themselves back into the conversation for especially like not just objectives, but really taking the game, turning the set back into maybe a 3-game.
I love that. Love that call from DonutDoug. Sell the starter, get the Deathbringer, let it fly. Geno drops to the last bit of damage that Uzzy deals, but majority of it coming out of this Ram. Anvil of Dawn will deliver itself towards the Harpies over in mid as Pyromancer drops and WePullUp begin to pull
Nice
the
wall.
Fire Giant. Schlemy caught against the wall from the Thor. To the skies, where's it headed? Nowhere is the answer. As the Horus and the rest of the team will end up backing away, but maybe have done enough damage to pull this FG. Remember, this could be the area where the starter sell and then Deathbringer pickup makes a massive difference. DonutDoug can shred the Fire Giant now. The Kaolin Wardens poked, pushed back, Wild Hunt used. Yes, it catches onto 3, but it's disengaged. A bat out of hell from RelentlessOne, also out. But have the Wardens done enough to stop the Fire Giant?
I think you still have the capabilities for burn. You've got sustain because of the Guan Yu and because of the Horus. You've got sustain on the other side because of this Sylvanus. So it's not out of the woods yet for WePullUp.
Schlemy over the wall. moswal as well. Fire Giant drops. Dueling Dragon shoves 2. TeepIsBald still on the FG. It's at half. Now it's starting to get a bit more risky, but if you dropped it right to the hands of the Kaolin Wardens, no, you've got to stick around. WePullUp, you started the objective. You can't let the Wardens grab it. And the Fire Giant does go to the Wardens. And a kill for Gryph. And a kill for Schlemy. It's disastrous for WePullUp. They start the objective on right, they drop it, and it's handed almost for free to the Kaolin Wardens. Schlemy, the only sacrifice, and the Wardens happy to make it.
And it seems, again, like another moment where 4 people say, get out, drop the Fire Giant, and one guy's just hanging around a little too long. Unfortunately, this time it's Teep. I was going to compliment him, because one of the things I think that WePullUp have going for him, you know, we've talked a lot about Soul Reaper, DonutDoug, PandaTurtle in a lot of instances. I have to give shout outs to Uzzy and Teep though, because you know they've got so much protection shred that killing tanks is super easy for them. The downside is that you can't do that in certain circumstances, and one of them being when you're dead if you take too much damage from the Fire Giant.
moswal is tier 2 tower diving here. He's still tanking it up. A kill over to Soul Reaper easily, and now one of the first Anvil of Dawns we've seen connect this game. Hits, and PandaTurtle on the fadeaway, the double tap. The Wardens have just dropped the advantage that they have with the Fire Giant right back to WePullUp. It's only RelentlessOne with the buff now after a double for the Thor. And that is a saving grace for WePullUp. That Fire Giant could have dropped all these tier 2s and fully swung the gold to the Kaolin Wardens. Now it's as if the Fire Giant never happened. We're right back to even.
So you know when you're watching, like you go to a baseball game in the stadium, see the players out on the field and they're throwing the ball back and forth. They're playing catch to kind of get their mind
early
in the
game.
No, like before the
innings?
game.
Oh, before the game?
Just like that warm up.
Right, so I'm in the parking lot.
But they're playing catch. Oh, you haven't
drinking beers.
you haven't gotten a seat yet?
No, it's like the third inning. I'm finally going.
Oh, yeah?
Anyway, I know what you're saying, right? They're warming up in the outfield, right?
But they're playing catch. One's throwing to the other's throwing back. That's
Yeah,
what's
right.
going on in this
Literally
game.
throwing.
It's just been a trial of errors back and forth for both of these squads, and like it is good on the one team to capitalize on it, but it's just so many times where I can hear Mifflin going what in my mind, where it's just like why is moswal tanking the tier 2 when they've got Fire Giant? Like why is there no one else with him taking that damage? Things like that where it's just like what was going on? Where is this communication going? And it's been pretty obvious in moments where we pull up that it's happened, and then there's a moment like that where the Wardens, and I'm going to just say it as candidly as I can, which is just that's the reason you were the 4th seed coming into this. You've got amazing players, but what was that play?
Yeah, there were definitely moments throughout the phase where the Wardens felt a bit disjointed. Definitely a microscope, a real zoom in on that type of moment here just a moment ago. RelentlessOne still has the buff, but what does that matter when you've given up 2,000 gold? 2,500 lost on this Fire Giant power play for the Kaolin Wardens. You're right, groove is 5, siege up some of these towers, get some damage going. Instead, you've now dealt kills back to PandaTurtle. That double in mid hits a big power spike. Titan's Bane finished into the tier 1 in the 6th slot. Suddenly this Thor is a big threat where PandaTurtle's had a rough time finding that connection early in this game. Gifted another opportunity. Soul Reaper as well. 1, 2, and 7, not the most menacing KDA, but really high in the XP per minute. Hit level 20 just behind moswal, who was farming like a menace this game.
Really high on the damage charts too.
High on the damage charts. Because right, I mean, we've talked.
Still a Baba Yaga.
20 minutes ago, we talked about can we get to late game. We've arrived. This is what Soul Reaper can do. Geno's in some serious trouble here. Snipes and firebolts. Woo! That'll simply just be enough. Up in the air. Anvil of Dawn. See one Schlemy who's in trouble. Then it's a double now for Soul Reaper. RelentlessOne leaps out and away. Now the wall's starting to connect. Gore, you are spot on. PandaTurtle feeling it a bit later in the game here. One more auto. Yes, please. And this is dangerous. 40 or so seconds on the FG. So if there's an immediate pull by we pull up, they will have a numbers advantage on the right side of the map for 10, 15 seconds.
And they've got the damage to do it. Look, that was that in the mar of the first couple or last couple of plays, that one was just really well done by We Pull Up. The damage, the snipes, the mechanics that came down from the carries to make sure they were able to get a kill, PandaTurtle being able to stun out Schlemy, and just set up the chase down. Every single thing that We Pull Up just did felt really solid there. And, I mean, you mentioned it, but you're talking about the Wardens essentially getting gifted a Fire Giant and then tripping and falling on their own sword, giving a bunch of gold over, now giving a bunch of kills over. Fire Giant's going to land, and like you said, it's not a lot of time, but they still have the time to start burning this. They just have to make sure they don't put it in a threshold at like a third HP or half HP and then just leave in order for the Kaolin Wardens to come in. They've got the DPS to burn this. It should be a free Fire Giant for them. Maybe a little contest, but they might just get a kill after.
It is an immediate Fire Giant pull, and the Fire Giant is going to get taken by We Pull Up. Now the Kaolin Wardens sensing the odds not in their favor. DonutDoug hits it again. The snipes have been on it this game. And that one connects as well. Now it's Griff left running. No more space to run. This is the clean FG we were hoping for. It's all 5 with fire and 3 down for the Kaolin Wardens.
And now, again, just such a great play. And DonutDoug, put him on the ROM every game. I don't want to, like, if Ishtar's available, maybe there's a conversation there, but you're hitting these snipes so well. The only reason the last one doesn't hit is because the ult timer's running out and moswal's still up in his immunity. Otherwise, every single shot's connecting where you want it to. You're finding good damage and combining with the team. It feels so great as a team to see him play this way.
moswal's got to dash away as RelentlessOne. Last line of defense for the right side. Phoenix, all he can really do, poke out some damage and send We Pull Up away. Or there's still 2 towers in mid.
I was looking at the same
One over
thing.
and left. So it's not immediately to either of the other 2 Phoenixes. You simply don't have them open yet.
Too tanky of a Titan.
That said, for We Pull Up, I love the not immediate disengage. They sense that they have the chance to win the fight and then also send some damage towards the Phoenix instead of fully resetting and then trying to siege once the Wardens are reinforced. They find their small advantage. Now can go back, spend up the 2,000 or so gold that everyone has, and fully realize that gold lead.
And not only fully realizing it, but when you start looking at where these builds are, I mean, like DonutDoug, we were talking, or at least I was mentioning the fact that he can burn fire giants. I see no spectrals on the other side. DonutDoug's going to be hitting hard. Anyone that stands in his way is going to get knocked away and knocked down. And then you add in the fact that it's a Soul Reaver for Soul Reaper, right? Very good pickup for the late game. PandaTurtle, I was memeing it earlier, but like it really has been the case where for some reason the first few minutes of playing Thor, every game has just not been hitting very well, right? Abilities way off the mark, things like that. But then you get to this late game Thor, suddenly the hammers are double tapping, you're hitting the walls, your ults are a lot cleaner. And if we could get late game PandaTurtle in the first 5, we pull up, gets a massive lead. But now, they've been playing well, and then with Uzzy and Teep kind of shredding prots the way they are, it's just really clean setup for the team.
Moswal needed the Aegis. Oh, is the Anvil of Dawn? Well, now it's way out of range. You know, DonutDoug has 4 kills. I think 3 of them have been through snipes and not just through the regular flow of like auto-attacking in a team fight.
One of the assists was because Soul Reaper got the last tick of damage for good snipes from DonutDoug.
That's right. Been on it this game. Mid-Phoenix drops. Actually not a bad defense from the Kaolin Wardens here. As we pull up, left running, half HP. Schlemy gets the first on a PandaTurtle who was left behind by the rest of his team. Fire, Oni minions. That doesn't sound right. Oni fire minions is the right way of wording it. Fire Oni minions just sounds backwards.
That's
are on the right side of the map, and looks like the left side tier 2 could be soon to fall here as well.
what they've done, though. Look, this is a massively successful fire giant just by merits of the map. They knocked down, what, 3 towers total? So a lot of gold from that. They got 2 phoenixes. They may... No, that doesn't look like they're going to get the 4th over there on left. And they never had a true opportunity. I mean, even when they knocked down Right Phoenix, 2 people were about to respawn. You were already feeling low health, and there were 3 towers standing. It's not a good time to go for the Titan. What you've got now is a really wide open field. Yeah, left side Phoenix is the one that would feel better to get. It's still 2 Phoenixes down, 2 things of fire minions. With the Fury that you just got, now a Pyromancer that you should be able to get pretty cleanly. For we pull up, this is why part of the reason like gold begets gold. You have put yourselves in a scenario where you have so much control. You've got a massive lead over the Wardens, and you know, experience maybe doesn't matter too much, but 3 levels for the supports, the 17 to the 20, so having the full points available for TeepIsBald. The gold is now getting invested into your relics because you've all finished your builds, you've got the ward coverage. You have a massive advantage. The downside is that because it's mid in Right Phoenix, it's very easy to coalesce as the Wardens after clearing a wave right back into that FG area, into the FG pit. And so we pull up with this advantage, are still going to have to play carefully and cautiously. You can't just walk up and take the objective for free. But the Wardens can't really leave and focus on the engagement the way they would want. Since it's an enhanced fire giant that's going to be respawning, it's a really big deal to try and get this one.
Yep.
If you're we pull up, you can get this objective. You get it even with just a single pick. Suddenly you're in a position where you should and could be talking about going for the Titan.
Again, Gore, this is an SOC team, and we've talked about the talent that this roster has. I don't know. No longer underdogs here in this matchup against the Kaolin Wardens. They've really taken it to them. I thought early on moswal was on easy street here in this game, but that shutdown, a couple misplays from both teams, brought us back to a state of advantage for we pull up. Now the right side Phoenix is back, but the mid lane one is going to still have to be dealt with, those fire minions, presumably by RelentlessOne. So it's that extra little mosquito in the ear for the Kaolin Wardens. Every once in a while, going to have to send someone back to mid, but RelentlessOne's done a good job of shoving the mid fire minions far enough back that you can 5v5 contest this for just a moment. Double tap from PandaTurtle. Means half of RelentlessOne's health bar is gone. To dash in from TeepIsBald to the skies, a cavalry charge, an Anvil of Dawn, and all of it hitting. Then an early kill for we pull up. Another one drops as DonutDoug steps forward. Alongside TeepIsBald goes Soul Reaver, and we pull up, ripping through the Kaolin Wardens. And just a couple kills left to drop, and it looks like game 3 right around the corner. And Gora, game 3 that'll send a team home and send a team on to our next round.
Well, it took a while. I mean, up to 19, 20 minutes in this game, neither squad felt like they could hold on to the leads they amassed. It felt like any step forward for one side, immediately they tripped on something. The other team was able to overcome them, take a couple steps back, and then you get a clean fight from We Pull Up. And it's around that tier 2, right? I mean, you're talking about them flubbing a Fire Giant, giving it over to the Kaolin Wardens, and then the Wardens completely obliterating themselves on a Fire Giant push. And that gives We Pull Up that moment to be able to reset. What should have been a devastating blow instead is a boon. Suddenly they can step forward. Next Fire Giant fight, they have the control because you get the gold specifically onto DonutDoug. We've already talked about the snipes, but you get that Deathbringer. And once that Fire Giant fight happened, it felt like the stars aligned for him. Everything starts hitting after that. The play calls after that are much cleaner. That's the kind of level of play that it takes to win these games.
I agree. If you're the Wardens, you're zoomed in on that tier 2 Fire Giant drop. And the way the game looks different after that. The SOC team on the verge of knocking out another SCC squad. Can it happen in Game 3? You got to stick around and find out.
Game number 2 of our first set of the day between the Wardens and We Pull Up goes the way of the SOC squad this time around. Kaolin Wardens start out the game quite strong, in fact. Moswal 5-0 at one point throughout, but felt that one little shutdown onto moswal was all the pace and all the momentum that We Pull Up may have needed to get there. And once we start getting to these late game team fights, Trelly, We Pull Up, PandaTurtle specifically on this Thor, you were calling for a pop-off game from him, Trelly, and it seems that PandaTurtle was able to do just that in game 2.
Yeah, I think the Wardens put a little bit, not enough respect on the Thor, I suppose, because early on, as you said, moswal was absolutely popping off, but I also echo a little bit of what Gore was talking about with, I truthfully don't know what the mindset was. moswal just dove tier 2 just because, you know, giving up a big portion of the Wardens team fight, and then after that, DonutDoug on the Rama, his snipes were completely on point throughout the entirety of that game, and I also echo what Gore was saying. I'm down to just pick Rama at this point over the Ishtar. I mean, maybe not over the Ishtar, but like if Ishtar's banned, give Doug Rama. My man was popping off, and he did not miss. I think the entirety of We Pull Up, they realized they had to show up for this game, and off the back of some great damage from Soul Reaper, and more specifically PandaTurtle on this Thor, I was extremely impressed. And I think definitely some changes in the ban column going into this next one if the Kaolin Wardens want to get a cleaner game number 3.
Yeah, I think you don't want to give a momentum god like Thor over to PandaTurtle. We've now seen what he's able to do. Soul Reaper was able to make it to that level 20 point, get a few items online on the Baba, and that's when we really start to see the damage numbers really creep up on this kind of a pick. And DonutDoug, as both you and Gore have highlighted, just looked phenomenal on the ROM this game. A couple of stumbles throughout the early, but once the late game got there, snipes were on point, able to really just sit back and kind of hold his ground against some of these tanks and even some of the damage dealers that were going his way. You saw a crit fight just against his opposition grip earlier on, able to win that one out. So a little bit of confidence and now maybe a little bit of momentum and some win back in the sails under the team of We Pull Up, as they are 1 game away from knocking out the Kaolin Wardens, 1 game away from moving on to the elimination stage of play. And I think for the Kaolin Wardens, some readjustment of the mental. I think maybe you're right to highlight kind of a little overconfident, maybe not respecting the kind of damage output and the kind of bounce back that this team has.
Yep, so now it's going to be, I got to imagine the Thor being taken away. I don't think you can ban Rama because there's so many hunters at the moment that are very highly contested, and snipes are just one of those things that if you're in snipe range, you got Aegis, you got to be able to juke those out. Doug not missing, so I wouldn't count on that. But definitely the Thor, something the Wardens need to look at. But moswal on the Huang could be something, despite the fact that We Pull Up 1 and we're able to deal with it. Maybe something they're a little bit worried about as well, because as early on, 5-0, got pretty much all the kills the Wardens were able to grab, besides like 2 in the first couple minutes of that game, and was still deadly on the Huang throughout, despite getting shut down, still top of the damage charts. That Huang was pretty scary as well.
And that's not an easy thing to do for a Huang to go 5-0 that early on in the game. We'll see if that god does make it back into moswal's hands and what kind of adjustments do get made for game number 3 as we jump into the picks and bans for that third game with the Kaolin Wardens and We Pull Up. We Pull Up still deciding to hold on to that second pick slot instead, allowing the Kaolin Wardens to have that first pick available to him. It was Ishtar game number 1 for the Kaolin Wardens. It was Cernunnos game number 2 in that first pick position. We'll see if maybe something else changes up there. If the store gets left open, can't imagine that's something that you might want to just take away from PandaTurtle at that point, Trelly.
Yeah, it could be the call. The Wardens are in that first pick selection, so we'll have to see if that's something they value. But so far, the Ishtar and the Vulcan, bans that I think are pretty solid up against the Wardens, of course, and the Thor is what we were looking for there. So the Artio notably is still open if Uzzy wanted to go towards that, but the Wardens are not going to deal with that Cthulhu, not that Guan Yu, or that Thor pick. So now it's time to see, is this going to be the Cernunnos that it usually is? No, this time around going to be the DonutDoug here for the Wardens. This pick is not the plug-and-play god that I used to think of. It just like, if it's first pick, grab DonutDoug. I've seen a few bad games on DonutDoug as of recent, so I don't think it's going to be that instant win. Picking a Cernunnos into it, though, means you better hold on to those beads.
Yeah, those beads are definitely going to have to be available for Cernunnos anytime the DonutDoug makes way over to that lane. Tier does have a little bit of answer to that with the CC immune ult of his own, as well as being able to pick up beads if he needs to. And even a Magi is always an option in that regard.
To Athens.
Now, it's been Sylvanus 2 games in a row for Geno, but maybe a little bit of a flip this time around as Athena gets locked in. We've seen the power of Athena so far. I believe only lost a single game of the 7 that she has been played in so far. And now coupling that by grabbing the ROM on the opposite side for Griff as well. Seems like a pretty strong duo lane for the Kaolin Wardens to start out, Charlie.
Yeah, the Wardens have definitely started this draft pretty scary, getting that Athena and the Rama, as well as the Daji. There's tons of beats burn already, just within those 2 picks, and then good carry potential as we've seen from the Rama throughout this set. But on the other side, I've been liking the tier a lot, and the Huang is going to be the call. So some extra burst damage, but some good survivability. 2 forms of CC immunity up against Daji means your beads aren't as valuable as they would be on a different style of mage. But going into the second wave of bans, the Scylla and the Agni taken away. Some big burst mages that it looks like we pull up are trying to mitigate here.
Well, not necessarily an Uzzy pick with the Bellona, but something that Uzzy has definitely played a little bit this weekend, as well as during his time in the SCC whenever he was up at that level of play. Bellona being that selection there with a Ymir and Horus ban, as well as a Scylla and Agni, has now brought this Nuwa out for the Kaolin Wardens. Again, something that moswal has played before, but doesn't really kind of scream that kind of top of meta mage style of pick. We don't really see this god all that often. And going against the composition that Nuwa has been drafted to, do you like this Nuwa pick right now, Charlie?
Yeah, that is a pick that I think is sneaky strong into certain matchups. Into the tier jungle that we're about to see is going to be a little rough. You pretty much have to put down your clay soldiers and just wait for tier to get close and then explode. That's your self-peel, otherwise you're beadsing. And I think PandaTurtle has shown that he can play this tier jungle pretty well when he's up against a jungle that takes a while to get online. Daji, she does have a bit of knock-up immunity in her second ability, but should be able to avoid the tier throughout that early game. I imagine that's the call, though. PandaTurtle's just going to try and hunt these 2 characters, the Daji or the Nuwa, in the early and say, hey, I'm looking to get ahead online very early.
Nike solo up against the Bellona, and then a Fafnir for TeepIsBald over in the support role. Got some decent auto attackers to go along with that one, so keep your eyes on objectives, but keep your eyes on this game. A very important one for both of these squads. One team going home, one team moving on to the second half of the play. Will it be the SCC or the SOC? To find out, we got to jump into game number 3 with the casters.
And suddenly momentum shifts once again. Remember, going into game 2, it's the Kaolin Wardens playing a bit more consistently after game number 1, but here in game 2, Gore, it's we pull up. I think that surprised the Kaolin Wardens beneath the tier 2 tower, flipped the game right around. Remember, moswal was on a 5-kill streak early in game 2. But we pull up able to weather the storm. They found those dives later in the game. They've got some callbacks to earlier sets that we saw them play here this weekend. PandaTurtle on the tier jungle, Uzzy on the Bellona solo. I get the feeling the diving's still going to be happening here for this We Pull Up team.
Oh, for sure. I think that they are going to be able to do so. The question really is, for me, how quickly they're going to be able to start doing it, right? Last time, it took like 20, 21 minutes before we got to see them finally start to fight back in a way that felt consistent. And I think that's going to be what they have to deal with over here. Thor, or sorry, not Thor, Tier.
I know, Thor on the
Going to be a little different. Well, Thor last game.
After that game, right.
Yeah, popped off at the end. Tier is in a very interesting spot when you throw him into the jungle, because I think that he's really great. Displacement-wise, he's so good. But if you are missing your Fearlesses or anything like that, or just not able to get in there, it just gets catastrophic almost instantly.
Gino was in trouble. Dodges just enough auto attacks to stay alive, but paths aggressively, I guess. We pull up, pull first blood. I thought Gino had the full route to get out there, sticks around, maybe considers a dash back in, and TeepIsBald calls him on it, and that'll be first blood. Now, granted, it's to the support, so you're not devastated, but clearly not ideal for the Kaolin Wardens in duo.
Still, yeah, dual lane kill onto a support. Admittedly, get an assist over there for your carry. I do want to see what DonutDoug is going to do in response and maybe in transition of the ROM to now the Cernunnos. I think that we got so much from the ults last time around that I'm kind of, well, it's weird. Part of me wants Griff to do really well because I want to see more sick snipes, but I also think that there's going to be something that is created with DonutDoug on the Kern in terms of in space and things like that it's going to do for the team. Probably really solid late game. At least that's what I'm expecting.
Schlemy blinks into solo. Knock up onto Uzzy. One more auto, and Schlemy's got it. Fantastic answer back from the Kaolin Wardens. And Gore, that might be one of the first solo lane ganks I've maybe seen this weekend.
Ooh, here it is.
PandaTurtle on the counter gank. Plenty of damage as well, and health, but Kaolin Wardens are going to disengage quite nicely. Good double taunt there from Geno, but likely doesn't set up for a kill here in duo. You know, and I'm glad Schlemy gets active early on here in Game 3 because, you know, fell by the wayside a bit later on in Game 2 when PandaTurtle really picked it up on that Thor. DonutDoug carries a lot of expectation with it, I think, in this current meta. It is such a highly prioritized, highly picked banned god that when you get it, I think immediately the team and the game and the viewers expecting to see some beads burning, to see some activity early in the game.
Yeah, I honestly think that the Dodgy and the tier, it's going to be weird. Late game, I believe both of them are going to be absolutely devastating. PandaTurtle, I think we saw this tier jungle not too long ago this week. And when you get the items online, first 2 or 3, really starts to hit it home. I mean, it is insane how much damage that he can do in what feels like just a matter of an instant. One of my favorite things, again, from years ago, was playing the tier jungle and watching the tier jungle. So I'm happy at least somebody is looking to make it continue to happen. It's got good displacement, things like that, but the problem is that you still need to wait for those items to be online to feel truly useful. I mean, we saw it there. You had 2 people who were incredibly low, and it didn't mean anything. Meanwhile, you get this, and it's just a clean-looking fight for someone like Schlemy, and it's exactly what you're asking for, which is no beads onto Uzzy, which means that that's a great opportunity for the powwow.
Yep.
And also showcases the thing I was going to say is lacking for the tier, which is damage. Dodgy can get engaging early on, and it's going to be able to be there. I mean, that tier 1 tower dive felt like it was going to be a little shaky, but now I think Schlemy is just off to a beautiful start, and the way they're playing this is going to theoretically transition into a really good late game.
Well, it should be able to springboard it. I imagine we'll get a Hydras pretty early on in this build as well from Schlemy, and that's where you'll see that extra little bit of burst. So I wonder, you know, Uzzy in a really tough spot now where there's nothing really stopping Schlemy from doing it over again for the next 7 levels for Uzzy. I mean,
yeah.
and that's if Uzzy feels the need to get beads at level 12. There's a potential for Schlemy just to stay active over on that side of the map. Not super easy to gank a Cern.
Yeah.
You can drop the Wild Hunt, has the beads there. I suppose TeepIsBald also an okay target. Both the transformation, things like that, it can delay out the fighting just a little bit further as well. So the Kaolin Wardens funnel a couple of kills to their jungler, but does not really pull them that much of a lead. The farm is maintained pretty stable between both of these squads. And so, you know, you start to shift around. Okay, mid lane, potential ganks, but really both, Gore, if you look at both mid laners, between a Nuwa, a Huang, both have some of that self-disengage that makes it more difficult for Schlemy or PandaTurtle to really hit home on a gank. RelentlessOne has the slow onto PandaTurtle, but Lawbringer up and over, enough to avoid the kill. RelentlessOne in a 3v1 now, though. Also does not have Nike ult, has the leap, and that'll be enough to get the Nike out.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need is just a nice little jump over the wall, especially a thick wall like the buff right there. That push is good from Soul Reaper, then maybe something big comes out of it. That's going to be the other conversation. Soul Reaper's on the Huang. I think Huang is just a phenomenal god in the right hands. And even though I believe, you know, last game, not doing maybe as or not winning, still played incredibly well. Moswal switching over to the new Wa is the one that's interesting. I know what to expect out of the Huang because the Huang has just been solid over the last few months after teams learned more or less where they wanted to do or what they wanted to do with his ult, where his abilities were. The damage is out there is incredibly solid. New Wa has a lot of that, but it's going to be interesting to see how Moswal is going to handle it. Granted, first game wins on the Opwash, is used to playing these mages that maybe aren't as in the meta as others. And then New Wa in the right circumstances can do a lot of burst damage. And we got to see a little hint of some of that as well when you drop the ult, you know, later on. That's going to be a lot more damage just in general across the board. But also good vision. That's the thing that as fun as it is to meme New Wa for being such a quote-unquote skill shot, it is very, very fun to look at it as, hey, here's a free contact. If you're you want to go for Gold Fear, you don't know where they are, New Watch just goes up. Don't need the damage, don't really care about the damage. You get to see on the map, are you able to pull this? And if so, it's an absolute go button for the Kaolin Wardens. So I think that's going to be a big opener for him, having essentially just a global ward once every like 90 seconds, but still a global ward.
Especially if moswal builds a little extra CDR into that build eventually. Of course, Sands of Time will give some to you, but for such a strong ability, there is a bit of a longer cooldown there. You can't just throw it out constantly. Maybe a bit later on in the game, depending where moswal chooses to go with that build. TeepIsBald jumps over the wall. Slight rotation from We Pull Up to the left side of the map. A wild hunt from DonutDoug slows down Geno, who actually backsteps back into lane, and that'll kill Geno here. I'm not sure the Athena gets out for sure anyway, but that definitely sealed the deal, and simple rotation in from PandaTurtle for an early assist. Gives TeepIsBald, though, their first kill. Soul Reaper will have to Celestial Flight away. This got to be one for Schlemy. Great knockback from the Huang, then a killing spree for the Daji instead. I laid down the gauntlet. I said I need to see a lot from this Daji. Expectations are increased, and Schlemy has brought it. As ult in from Geno, Palau up, and another one. Uh-oh, Schlemy's starting to heat up a bit here in game 3. 4-0 on the Daji.
If Schlemy can keep this pace up, the Wardens are going to win. Not just on the back of Schlemy. It's not just Schlemy. But it is going to win on the merits that this team gets so much stronger. I mean, Athena tankier as the game goes on. New Wa going to do more damage. Oghryph going to move more damage. RelentlessOne going to be able to join these fights. It's honestly just a shame they don't have the tankiness right now. Geno specifically, incredibly low. Not a lot else you can do. Early Gold Furies do still need someone good to tank them. And unfortunately, they had to let that one go. Otherwise, we're starting to talk about a very massive lead very early on for the Wardens. A lot of that existing on Schlemy because of the kills, but I think the presence from this Daji has been great. And you are heralding your team into a mid-game that is going to be, at this rate, moderately successful, if not just greatly successful.
Yeah.
And then into a late game where you can talk about surviving in the tournament another day.
Well, moswal's just getting it done again over in mid. The 2 assists and just the 1 death on Soul Reaper, but about a level and a half ahead of the Huang. It was 2 levels just a second ago. moswal has been a menace in the farm game these last 2 games. Obviously, you know, game 2, moswal had like 5 kills by now. A lot of it brought around by the rest of the team, but well played by what was the Huang. This game, yes, a couple of assists. It is just a farming masterclass by moswal, who's one of the best to ever do it over in mid. Showing us why here for the Kaolin Wardens. Pyromancer pull by We Pull Up. Kaolin Wardens close by, so they'll try to call him on it. Probably a smart reset from the We Pull Up team. There is no hovering from the Kaolin Wardens back towards left. This is just We Pull Up, finding some aggression on right. The Kaolin Wardens able to answer it. And really, Gore, you know, so often we say, well, there's this massive lead in duo that, you know, you can pull the Gold Fury, things like that. Not quite the case here, despite a couple kills for TeepIsBald, a couple assists for Geno. Feels pretty even on the left side of the map. It's about where those mid laners can maybe bounce around for these early objectives.
moswal has been farming like a nut job over the last 2 or 3 games. And honestly, it's something that I think is hopefully going to give them that benefit. I mean, you're talking about looking at the mid laners. I think Huang, utility-wise, is going to have just the outright benefit. But New Hua with a small level up, a little bit of damage. You've got the Clay Soldiers as well, whether you're going to use them for burst or just for tanking, things like that. I think you've got plenty of capabilities. That is going to be the downside, actually. That is maybe one of the perfect examples. We've seen a lot of objectives that have been a little shaky. They took that?
Wow, We Pull Up, steals the Pyromancer, nearly steals a kill onto Geno. Uzzy's going to get jumped on, though. moswal will get the execute if RelentlessOne doesn't. And maybe an ult in from Geno here as well. I think still a bit of fight left here on the right side of the jungle. Soul Reaper's dash is gone. Oghryph is solo DonutDoug on the left side of the map, and now the Palau can wreak havoc. Over on right, Schlemy another double, 6-0 for the Kaolin Wardens jungler. And Soul Reaper in some serious trouble. The dive just around the corner. Rend hit for a bit of damage. Perfect juggling of aggro here for the Kaolin Wardens. Why not? All 3 for Schlemy. 7-0 on the Daji. And who cares about a Pyromancer when you get the deicide thanks to Griff on left.
Now, I was gonna give credit to We Pull Up, and honestly, it's the downside of the new WoW minions, and actually there's another good example of them. They keep the aggro. That's what happens on that Pyromancer. They both pull back, moswal and Geno pull back. The minions keep it going, and that opens up the opportunity for We Pull Up. They're not full DPSing it anymore. Around a Gold Fury or a Fire Giant, you have to imagine that's going to be very devastating if it happens that way. But when you get a full deicide afterward, it's kind of hard to care so much. I mean, exactly what you said. Who cares about a Pyromancer? Who cares about Geno's life if you're getting a Fury, right? Things like this, I mean, it's going incredibly well. And I think that Schlemy is just playing out of their damn mind right now. 7-0-0. I mean, being able to go in specifically after Soul Reaper, the beads were down. You saw that the dash was down. Immediately going in with the Pala was huge.
Now, what we didn't get to see was the solo kill from Griff. And moswal will be okay here. I've been hyping up Griff all set long. And DonutDoug, he forces the beads out of Griff. Goodness, it's not all that crazy of a play here. That is just knowing your power spikes. And Griff is able to roll forward. We resume the action, though, right back over in mid, where Schlemy pulls in PandaTurtle once more. Dueling Dragons off the mark, but Schlemy's got the bleed. And Schlemy's got 8. How about a 3-man slow from RelentlessOne? And like an easy game of bowling, the Kaolin Wardens knocking down the pins once again. And we're getting a bit out of control here in game 3. Seems like Schlemy was a bit tired with the contested set, wanted to take it over. Now with 9 straight in 14 minutes.
And it's unfortunate.
It's a shutdown.
All right, Schlemy, I was just about to compliment you. Why are we diving the Phoenix? 14 minutes. And so here's what I was going to say. Maybe I'll wait to see where these shots go. Aegis is good for only a little bit. And the shots don't connect too much. Might be a kill, but it's a 3v1, so if DonutDoug goes down, it's nothing crazy. Prior to that death and a massive shutdown, I was going to compliment the Wardens because they seem to be on the exact same page I was, which was whatever the hell it was that you just did in Game 2, don't do that again. And come back with a massive vengeance. I mean, you were behind. You shouldn't have gotten the Fire Giant. You were lucky to get that, and that was on a mistake from We Pull Up. And then you threw the game again from that moment. And so being able to take that, kind of turn it into a rage yourself and say, all right, you know what? We're not going to do that again. We are going to showcase why we are here, why we deserve to win, why we should go to the top 4 and need to be in that top 2 to go to the group stages. And Schlemy has been doing that. And enough of it that I think I am willing to overlook the diving of the Phoenix. And it's just because what we have seen from this Daji made me legitimately forget that there was another jungler in this game. PandaTurtle has been such a non-factor in comparison that I completely blanked that the tier was in the jungle. I just assumed there was a solo laner and somebody was farming up in the jungle. Like, there is nothing that was going on for him. And so Schlemy was doing a fantastic job. Giving the shutdown over, maybe not the cleanest thing that you could have happened. But at the same time, with the level spike, I mean, you're still 9-1. You are more than happy to continue that pace of game.
And remember, jungle was the concern for this Kaolin Wardens team coming into this event. You lose Susano. What's jungle? What's the team identity going to look like? Game 3, non-concern. Now, Uzzy lives a bit longer than maybe expected here. The tower dive begins, but it'll be another one for Schlemy. Oh no, and the aggro gets dropped, but Schlemy able to dash away. Lawbringer in, Fearless still waiting for PandaTurtle, but it's gonna have to wait a bit longer. The auto attacks just fine, and the final bitter end means killing spree. And every once in a while in North America, Gore, the games have the potential to start going like this, where we just funnel in kills, we chase them down, we're a bit too early in the game to fully feel confident about the Fire Giant, and we just start to build up gold and experience. Soul Reaper barely lives there. The snipes were good from Griff, but ultimately doesn't make much of a difference. I mean, now look, I mean, you're so far ahead if you're the Kaolin Wardens.
Yes.
You got a Pyromancer.
I think you could pull fire
You probably
here.
could pull fire.
If you wanted to.
Might just grab Pyro, go back, and then
That's
pull
way
fire
easier.
here in just a moment. But
9 minutes ago, this was 2-1, and I was thinking, right, and we were gonna have the Game 3 conversation, like not too uncommon, slow the pace down a little bit, try to, And then Schlemy just decided to light things on fire. And I love that. I love the fact that they came in, they picked not only a power pick, something that has been banned for good reason. They're able to pick it up and have this kind of performance. The only downside I have so far from Schlemy is that every time he is using that ability, it sounds like a grandfather clock and a key.
Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly like that. Like it's chiming on the hour. And I think that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's the clock for it, because that's the school scan, right? So like it's meant to be, I think, the clock to start.
It'd also be like super creepy in a horror movie. I think it's like a harbinger of death right now. Exactly. And we pull up our.
And then you hear a little doll laughing.
And we pull up our hearing that sound
right before death.
And 10 out of 14 times it's meant death here in this game. It's been terrifying. Schlemy's made it work, and the Kaolin Wardens have as well. It's a perfect support KDA for moswal as well. So we've mentioned it's been a farming menace, but also been an assisting menace. God, that was.
Now everyone's going to be hearing it the rest of the game because I pointed
Imagine, like, you're around the corner. I don't know, like.
If that was a little slower, it's true horror film.
I guess you wouldn't hear it unless.
You have to be close.
Visually, would you be able to hear it, like, around a wall, or do you have to see the ability for it to go off? You can hear it even if you don't see the ability? Okay. Yeah, so like that's I want Schlemy just to use it. Just to say,
use
by the
your
way,
cooldown just to psych him out.
Right, just saying I'm somewhere over here in the jungle. No, it's too important of an ability when you're diving in. You can't just
you can't just throw it out there for the. But now, if you had an emote, no, that would be broken. Never mind.
Just keep using that over and over and over again. No, look, Gore, I think you're right around the corner from a fire giant pull here for the Kaolin Wardens. You're about 6,000 gold ahead. Might even be one player ahead, as Uzzy has used the Eagles rally already. The rest of the Kaolin Wardens are going to send their way right. Uh-oh, Geno's died early in this fight. 30 seconds left on the death timer. We'll have Defender of Olympus upon respawn, should the fight break out. Maybe you're looking for an initiation if you're pull up, but Schlemy's just going to do this to you. Go up to the Palau, force PandaTurtle to Lawbringer away. Transformation from TeepIsBald, and the Wild Hunt disengages the fight. Actually good poke damage from pull up. And the 6,000 gold lead not feeling quite as bad when you can take a breather thanks to a couple picks.
It might have been just too much of a breather, right? I mean, if you think about it, the patience that they had to hold on to. Luckily, Schlemy pulled a lot of utility out of there. I mean, a couple of ults that are just gone, Teep being one of them, where otherwise you maybe get out of that. But because Schlemy goes in for the Palau, forces ults early from PandaTurtle, from Teep, and some of them to fall back, suddenly becomes a much more, at least bounce-backable position for the Wardens when things didn't go well. Does make the pull onto an FG feel a little more suspect, right? Like, or suspect. If you go in for a fire giant, it's not really all guaranteed. You don't have a lot of bursts. I mean, you do technically have like clay soldiers that can give you something. The snipes as well from Griff, maybe a big deal, but you're 50-50ing it with a 6,000 gold lead. You could usually just turn that into a massive fight that you're going to win. But they kept a lot of relics, only beads down for DonutDoug. And so we pull up, still able to potentially contest a fire giant despite the deficit they're in.
Now remember, it was Uzzy who, despite dying, actually drawed the attention of a couple of the Wardens for enough time for Soul Reaper to get some burst damage out in the last fight on NotGeno. Albeit behind, experience-wise, but still has some penetration and some burst in the build, this Huang does, so. You know, yes, you're ahead, but you not to the point where you can simply just take free burst on cooldown from pull up. You can tell, though confident, struggling a bit with exactly how they want to pull this fire giant are the Kaolin Wardens. Because you know what just happened a few moments ago. I do wonder though, and again, I've talked about this before. This is why I'm not a very good player, because I'm just pulling this thing immediately in the face if pull up. And hoping things go well. Snipes would make this pill a bit easier to swallow. RelentlessOne's got the kill, and pull up not here as a team. Now PandaTurtle being chased down. Lawbringer enough to disengage. Dueling Dragons sends Geno right back in. That's where he wants to be. Then pull up now down to 3, down to 2 as Schlemy Dashes forward, could be a second, but it's Griff on a killing spree, and the Deicide drops at 22 minutes. Can't go for the Phoenix, still a tower there. I wonder, is this FG call? Probably. This tower burning too long gives you an idea of how long the Phoenix would take. Now it goes down. And back to the FG on the Deicide go the Kaolin Wardens.
Yes, that's the best showcase of why Fire Giant is necessary as ever. I mean, you're talking about a team that's leading kills 21-6. You're talking about a team that just got a Deicide. It still took a while to burn down the tower, but they had plenty of time to work with. Honestly, you're talking about any better map state if they have a Phoenix already down or at least exposed. Might be talking about the end of the game off of a play like that. And so I think incredibly played by the Kaolin Wardens. And a lot of it, again, Schlemy, I have to give the shout out to. I think everybody's playing really well, but the loop around from the jungler to make sure that you aren't just going to be able to walk back to your Phoenix while everybody else was diving into the tier 2 and pushing We Pull Up back was really well played, holding on the chains for the powwow to pull PandaTurtle in anyway. There were a lot of movements and motions from the jungler that just made this look good. Have to give RelentlessOne the shout out though, as well as Griff, right? A lot of good snipes, a lot of good presence. The Rend so far has been on point. The damage out of RelentlessOne here on the Nike is just kind of bonkers good. Nike rivaling the top 2, and for the most part, it's not because of the solo lane 1v1s and just bullying each other. It's because of these rotations. I mean, RelentlessOne has really been putting in the work to get these kills and to put that damage on the board.
All right, Kaolin Warden score. They're on the verge here at 24 minutes of advancing to the elimination stage of the North American SCC Championship and sending We Pull Up home. Is there a bit more magic for We Pull Up? That's the question. They have made it happen against the SCC team so far here this weekend. They've sent one home, and they'd love a chance to do so again. In we go. Maybe one final time, though. Geno and Griff melting a bit quicker than they had bargained for. Geno not killed, though. Schlemy is. So you've lost your 12-1 Daji. We Pull Up. Maybe sensing now is their moment to strike.
This is where, I mean, this can be very dangerous. moswal, though, taking a lot of burn, but you have to be careful. You're aggressing into the Wardens. They still have a lead.
Oh, that's a 3-man taunt, and one that may win the game. Soul Reaper flutters away. moswal drops TeepIsBald. Soul Reaper falls to a similar fate, and now it's PandaTurtle up against 4, and I don't think PandaTurtle feeling confident about those odds. Heartseeker, a transcendence to keep your world's hopes, your SCC championship hopes alive. But those hopes will be dashed against the rocks at Deicide once more, and the Kaolin Wardens move on and send We Pull Up home.
An emphatic statement is how I would describe game number 3 there. Schlemy comes out, pops off, maybe showcases why Daji should not be allowed in some of these games, as well as this ROM. I think the ROM play in the last 2 games was crucial for them. But the biggest thing is seeing them coalesce as a team. Again, heavy fumbles in game number 2 from the Wardens that if that happens against like the Hounds, you're just out of the tournament. It's not happening anymore. And so being able to take that from game 2 to what we just saw in game 3 is exactly the kind of turnaround I need from the Wardens to see their mind kind of shift into the, wait a minute, we really need to buckle down, don't want to get knocked out. That's the level of team that could make it to the group stages.
Good news for the Wardens is now you're on a bit of a reset, back to double elimination status. A bit of room for error now moving forward. Unfortunately for We Pull Up, this is the end of the road for them here in Season 9. We'll see what the future holds for this roster. But for now, you got to talk about the Kaolin Wardens, and to do so, head back to the desk.
Yeah, that's right. The Kaolin Wardens really showed up in game number 3, or should I say, Schlemy really showed up in game number 3, Charlie. We were kind of scratching our heads thinking, man, is the Daji really still that good? We didn't see a whole lot of success over on the EU side of things with this pick. Completely different story, at least in this game on this pick, for the jungler, the new jungler of the Kaolin Wardens and Schlemy, going 12-2, I believe, to finish that game out. Even Griff on the ROM, 7-0, or I think even 8-0 by the end of that time when he gets the kill in the fountain. This is just a Kaolin Warden saying, yeah, we're the SCC for a reason, and show We Pull Up why that this is the team that deserves to continue moving on in the brackets.
Yeah, they definitely showed up in this last game, and I think echoing the statements you made about all those players, but Gotta shout out moswal as well. Did some big damage numbers and also survived in some pretty sneaky situations there. I thought in that last siege, that Nuwa may have been the first target in those engagements, but was able to actually survive for quite some time and then use that Nuwa ultimate. It's not difficult. Just click 4. You know, that is your job late game as a Nuwa, but he clicked 4 pretty darn well on top of using that fog and the minion wave as well. So I think the entirety of this squad looked real good. Geno was always on point with those Defender of Olympus, setting up for the team. And when you have someone burning beads for you at the taunt, Schlemy's job does get a lot easier. But you can't go 12-2 without being really great positions. You know, good wraparounds there from Schlemy as well. I think the Daji this sort of game shows why this pick is so highly contested. We were both questioning it. Me specifically, I was like, you know, we haven't seen a good pop-off Daji game in a while, but we definitely saw one here.
Yeah, this Athena as well. That's something that's been very hotly contested for the North American SCC. We saw it a little bit in Europe last week, but I think the North American sports have really shown why this Athena might be back in meta, especially when you're making taunts like Geno did there at the end of the game. 3-man taunt to effectively turn the team fight back around in favor of the Wardens. Remember, they lost Schlemy at the beginning of the fight, and they said, well, our Daji is down. Our big carry is dead. We're going to reset. We're going to wait and come back a little bit later. We pull up, said, no, we're going to fight now because we've got the man advantage. And, well, then Geno triple taunted, and they probably thought, maybe we shouldn't have tried to fight this team again, especially when they're so far ahead. The Kaolin Wardens, a 5-0 performance out of RelentlessOne. Didn't even really talk much about him, but really putting on a show on this Nike. Once again, moswal top damage there for the Nuwa in the lobby. Just all around dominant performance by the Wardens here in Game 3.
Yeah, multiple 5-man ults by moswal, and that's not
Tons
easy.
of them.
That's not easy to do. Hit every single person on the map. moswal was popping off. But I think you're right. RelentlessOne also just diving to the backline. This Nike pick keeps coming up, and eventually I'm going to have to put some respect on it and say, all right, maybe Nike doesn't just get completely shut down by the Sunder. Maybe Nike is just an absolute menace in the backline. But in certain matchups, for sure, I think Nike, a decent counter pick into tier matchups. In this case, the tier was jungle, but still, if you're worried about getting knocked up, if you're worried about Fearless, Nike does have a lot of different tools to immune that.
And have no fear for the Kaolin Wardens solo. RelentlessOne steps up big for his team. The Kaolin Wardens move on to the second half of play. We'll take a look at the bracket to see how at least the first portion of our weekend went for Group A. The Eldritch Hounds were your first team to qualify through to the elimination stage with their win yesterday. And then today, for the Kaolin Wardens, after a win to the Weavers, a loss to the Hounds, and now a win against We Pull Up in a 2-1 set. They'll be moving on to the elimination stage of play with their brethren in the Eldritch Hounds. Opposite side, though, for Group B, we still have one more team that we've got to send up to that next round of play, to that third stage, or to that second stage of a basically double elimination reset round. We already got the Athenian stage up there, your number 2 SCC team. Now the question will be, is it going to be the Yomi Tanuki, the number 3, and we'll have literally your top 1, your number 1 through 4 seeds there, or the Shabbat with the Storm going to throw a wrench in the mix? Your number 5 seed coming into this tournament, a revenge match for the Yomi Tanuki and the Shabalba Storm. Remember, Yomi Tanuki found a win over the Storm 2-0 earlier this week, and a pretty convincing 2-0 at that. We'll see if the Shabalba Storm, after their bounce back against Blubber Bottoms, have what it takes to fight back against the Yomi Tanuki in this revenge match.
Yeah, being able to sit back and sort of observe these matches maybe gives the Storm a little bit of extra edge. And also, you know, coming off the start of this tournament, maybe just a little bit rusty. I think Storm has been looking a lot more solid in their matches since that loss, so definitely has some adaptations to make and maybe some different god selections as well. All of those things could come into play here, but as I've been saying throughout the entirety of this tournament, it's just whoever shows up when it's game time, and when elimination is on the line, you gotta make sure you're bringing everything your team has.
Yeah, because that very first match of the week, there wasn't a whole lot up there. It was, okay, cool, you get to stay in the winner bracket, or you go down to the losers bracket, and nobody goes home on that one. This one, though, this set between the Tanuki and the Shabalba Storm is elimination for one of these teams. One moves on to the second half of play, one goes home. We have all that and more still going on the rest of the day, but before that, we have set 2 coming up right after this break.